Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. Nice crowd tonight. Glad to see all of you here. It's going to be a special event, I think. I'd like to lead off this evening, welcome you all to the December 3rd, 2012 Currituck County Board of Commissioners meeting, but start off with an invocation with Reverend Walter Gallup, who will also lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we're going to have a special presentation for you. If you'll all rise, please.
Commissioners and members, I'd like to offer a prayer. We come to the end of a year this year, so we have business to summarize and take care of, and we face a new year. So I have a prayer that I'd like to provide for this occasion. Let us pray. God of our native land, we approach the end of another year in our lives. We lay before you both our failures and our dreams. We ask you to forgive us of our transgressions and encourage us in our dreams and work for a more perfect union. Save our people from class warfare and hatred, from racial antagonisms, from seeking party advantage and forgetfulness of the good for all of our people. Save your people that we may be mindful of the poor and the oppressed among us, that we may bring to our children a nation that is tolerant and respectful of our differences. We ask you, O Lord, to give us legislatures and faithful counselors who gravely, soberly, and with a godly spirit may always enact laws that are just and fair. And now we lay before you our dreams of a new year. Give us wisdom in our services to our community, our hopes and work to preserve our freedoms, the challenges of our government, both national and local, and those appointed to respect the people they serve. We are a work in progress as a nation, and let us never forget we need your spirit and faith to keep us moving in the right direction. Hear our prayer, O Lord. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Be seated. Thank you. We have here tonight the Monarch Lighthouse Club bell ringers, and I understand Renata Mackerel is going to explain something about that, and then I have Kathy Foreman, the Guardian Ad Litem program, is going to talk about the Governor's Award for Volunteer Service.
One will follow the other.
One will follow the other, and she will follow you, I understand? All right. Okay.
Good evening. My name is Kathy Foreman, and I am the District Administrator for the Guardian Ad Litem program. If you are familiar with our program, I recruit and train and supervise volunteers in our community to be advocates for abused and neglected children. But I'm here tonight wearing a different hat, and that is as the county coordinator for the Governor's Volunteer Service Award. This year, well, it's actually, we talk about a new year. The Monarch Lighthouse Club bell ringers are going to receive, or are receiving, the Governor's Award for Outstanding Volunteer Service for 2013. The Monarch Lighthouse Club bell ringers are a group of individuals with developmental disabilities who are paving the way and showing the community that disability does not define a person. They are committed to giving back to their community, thus enhancing their own feelings of self-worth. They are while enriching the lives of those they touch. The Monarch Lighthouse Club engages in various volunteer services, but once they were introduced to bell ringing, they took off. Through hard work and support of community members, they have become a shining light to another vulnerable group of individuals, the elderly and the medically frail. They also perform in 2 Alzheimer's units. As we know, Alzheimer's disease is a rapidly growing and horrific disease. The performances by the bell ringers touch these folks and bring happiness to the people who are constantly experiencing loss of their abilities. The fact that the bell ringers provide these services not only impacts the people living in the institutional settings, but also their families. It is painful for family members to see the decline in their loved ones, and the bell ringers bringing them smiles provides them with comfort. When you are losing so much, you become very aware of the small things that impact life. Intellectual disabilities can have on others when provided with the support needed to succeed. Everyone needs support from others, and we are committed to educating our neighbors that we are more alike than we are different. And so I'm here tonight just to announce that the Monarch Lighthouse Club bell ringers are receiving the Governor's Award for 2013 for outstanding volunteer service. And there's two people that I want to recognize this evening. First is Juliet Baum, who is the lead staff member for Monarch. And to present the presentation is Renata Metzgeroli, who will say a few words about Monarch. Thank you.
This is Janning Skinner and Kristen Caboni. Kristen is kind of new with the Lighthouse Club, but she is jumped on board like crazy. Anything that we get involved with, Kristen is right there saying, yeah, I want to do it, I want to do it, I want to do it, and does it wonderfully. You know, I don't know if everybody in Currituck County even knows about us. We have been here for a very long time. We used to be under the auspices of Albemarle Mental Health, and we have been under Monarch for about 4 years now. And our mission is to make sure that every individual has equal opportunity, that people get the support that they need so that they can lead productive lives. And one of the big things that the Lighthouse Club is doing is when we contact a place, our opening statement is, what can we do for you? What can we do for you? So these folks have been going around to nursing homes and senior centers from Elizabeth City to Dare County and everything in between, and actually, literally, seriously changing the lives of hundreds of people. And they do it with joy, and they do it with dignity. And we are very honored to get this award. And I am going to introduce the Lighthouse Club Choir. They've changed their name from the Bell Ringers to the Choir because they get more serious about things. And I guarantee you that what you hear in the next few minutes is going to have an impact on you, just as it has had on everyone that they have performed for. So thank you for allowing us this opportunity. And
we're going to ask them all to come up into the center area here. We've got special microphones arranged, and that way we'll be able to pick them up on camera well, too.
you want us in here?
Yep, come up here and then face out toward the audience. It'll be perfect. And Commissioner O'Neill's going to sing along with you because
I hope it's
in the
so low we don't hear him.
Do you want to go on the road with us? Come on, Lord.
Road trip.
We love road trips.
everybody. We are the Monarch Currituck Lions Club Bell Choir of Point Harbor.
Our first song is Silver Bell.
Please turn it up.
Kenan Pacabella. Our next song is Kenan Pacabella.
The last song.
The last song.
Once they get on the stage.
We would love to have you continue to play. How about that? Cancel this meeting.
I am.
Merry Christmas. Very good. Very nice.
You got it. Mimi. Well, did they touch your heart?
Oh, absolutely. Very nice.
Thank you.
Set the mood.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That was great.
We'll give them a moment to get clear before we move on with official business.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Renata. Thanks for coming.
Merry Christmas
Bringing the
to you.
group.
Merry Christmas to you, too. Yeah. You know what? I think the big job that people with disabilities do for us is they change our life. They make me a better human being. They improve my perspective on life. They keep me in check. They keep my values in order. You know, and that's what our job is, because we're on a mission to make the world a better place.
You're 100%
Yep.
correct.
Yeah. Compassion is our number one job. Compassion is our number one job as human beings.
That's our number one job. I hope to get to know all of them more.
Shannon, you guys come this way.
Thank you. Thank you. Blessings.
Good job. Good job. Good job. Good job. Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening.
Hey, Paul.
Same thing. Or Gwen. I'm glad that put everybody in a good mood because it's all downhill from here. Back to business, back to reality, guys. Okay, my last official act as chairman is going to be approval of the November 19, 2012 minutes.
So
Has everybody
moved.
read them? Do I have any additions or comments? Would somebody like to make a motion to accept them?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Minutes are approved for November 19, 2012. Next item is recognition and comments from outgoing Commissioners Rohr and Etheridge. Well, I recognize Owen.
I'll take this seat as vice chair. I've got a little plaque from the county. I guess I need to speak up in the mic. But this is a presentation and recognition. Oh, you're going to make me go up front with them? Absolutely. Come on.
Do we have
let's
to go down there, too?
Absolutely.
Oh, well.
That's all that's good.
No execution music going on.
That's right. Let's all go.
The first presentation is in recognition of J. Owen Etheridge for his dedicated service to the citizens of Currituck County as a member of the Currituck County Board of Commissioners from 2004 to 2012. The next one is in recognition of John D. Rohr for his dedicated service to the citizens of Currituck County as a member of the Currituck County Board of Commissioners from 2008 to 2012.
She's the only one that hugged. The rest of them are okay.
And the other award that I have is in recognition of John D. Rohr for serving as chairman of the Currituck County Board of Commissioners from 2011 and 2012. And you have a gavel to take with you, so
Yay.
you don't have to worry about taking the one up
Oh,
there.
boy, I was going to take that one, too.
But it's been a pleasure for me serving with both of you for the last 2 years on the Board of Commissioners, and I'm certainly going to miss your mentorship and your advice and all the above. I've got great colleagues to continue with, but I'm certainly going to miss working with both of you guys. And I wish you the best in your
Thank you
future
very much.
endeavors.
All right. Thank you. You want me to go first?
Yeah, you'll go.
Okay, well, you asked me before. I said I was going to go last because.
You'll come over here when you get to the mic.
Oh, can you hear me? Do you need me on the mic for the posterity?
Yeah.
Okay, I got one up there. Okay, I'll just talk from here. Well, this has been an interesting 4 years. You know, I was thinking about today. I talked with Owen earlier over here when we were at Denise's swearing-in ceremony this morning. And I was thinking back 40-some years ago when I started law school. And I was totally optimistic going, gosh, what a great adventure this is going to be. You can change the world. And after about a year of that, I thought, I don't want to be one of these because you can't get anything done as a lawyer. And every lawyer I've talked to has told me pretty much the same thing. And it's interesting, when I started this in 2008, my wife volunteered me to run for commissioner. And gosh, nobody ever thought I'd get elected, but it happened. And I was all optimistic. And, after about a year of this, I figured, God, why would anybody want to do this? And the point really is, honestly, I don't know how many of you have ever been involved in politics. I'm a businessman by background. I have neither the temperament nor the patience to be a politician. It takes a special kind of person because everything you do is frustrating. You have to work with lots of people. I'm the kind of person in business that's like, do that, and it gets done. And this is an entirely different school up here working with it. These folks that volunteer to do this, and when they talk about public service, that's really what it is. It's hard to do. It's hard to get 7 diverse people thinking on the same page at any given time. And maybe that's a good thing, because if they all thought the same way, boy, the laws would be running past you faster than you could believe. But the essence of it is I have learned a lot. I can think of no better way to get to know the people of Currituck County than run for office, because I'd worked down there for about 4 years before I ever did this. And gosh, you can't believe how many friends I've made. Now, it's been a tough 4 years. It's been very frustrating. I've made some great friends. I've learned a lot. I lost a home. I lost my wife. But I gained a lot from you folks. And I really appreciate the support that you've given me. So thank you.
Well, I guess it's my turn to bore you. I first occupied one of these chairs in 1994. And I served 8 years and then took a 2-year sabbatical. And I've been asked, is that's what I'm planning to do now, take a 2-year sabbatical. But I don't know what the future's going to hold. But as I was thinking over the last couple of weeks, what I wanted to say, and trying to reflect on what has transpired in the 16 so years I've been on this board, I wrote this very long, elaborate speech. But the events of last week has changed the way I look at things. Excuse me. I think back to when I was first elected. First person that said anything to me was my dad. He said, you've got to do what's right for the people that voted for you. I've watched him for the last week in the hospital, fighting every day for his life. I wished I had that kind of courage and strength, but I don't. But he is a fighter. I look back over my tenure in this office, and I walked in tonight, I looked at his plaque. And I've had the rare and unique opportunity to serve the people of Currituck County. And if you look at this plaque, there's not that many people up there, but there are men and women who have always stepped up here to try to do the right thing for the people they serve. What we heard here tonight with those bell ringers was a gift. Amen. And when someone seeks to serve in public office, I think their primary goal should be improve the quality of life for the citizens they serve. And this was a fine example of it tonight. These people gave us an opportunity to see the simple nature of life through their music. And looking out at all of you sitting out here tonight, I saw the smiles on your face. And you got that gift. We all got that gift. So keep that in mind, Kevin, David, as you now seek to serve the people of Currituck County. I've had the good fortune of working with some fine people, great commissioners, good staff, Dan Scanlon, Ike. They've always been there to guide us. We found Jack Semino Jr. and Ben Woody, and he's done a great job for us. But the commissioners that I've had the opportunity to work with over the years always brought a perspective to Currituck County that enlightened me on a lot of things, and I think John touched on it. The diversity of the people that serve in this office is important. Now, it's like herding cats many times, and I've heard Paul O'Neill say it's like making sausage. It ain't pretty, but the results hopefully will end out. And with that, I'll say I want to thank Paul personally, because he and I first came on this board in 1994 together. In 1994, my hairline had not started to meet each other at the top of my head, and I had no gray hair at that time. But things have changed, and they will continue to change. But the one steady constant that I've learned over these years is the spirit, love, and compassion of the people of Currituck County. As long as we keep that, we'll always do what's right for the people of Currituck County. And that is why today, and I'm bragging now, absolutely, we are recognized in the state of North Carolina as the best run, best financially managed county, and the county that everybody else looks to for the things that they need to do to improve the quality of life for their citizens. So, I'm not going away. I'm not going to disappear. I'll see each and every one of you again. And in this season of rejoicing on what we need to do in life, and that is to remember back, I'll leave you with this. I was reading a book last night as I was sitting in the hospital. It's called George Washington. It's about the life of George Washington. It was when he took over the leadership of the Constitutional Convention. He and Ben Franklin were the old men in the room. And it seemed like for a couple of months, nothing happened. They were just debating to hear themselves debate. A lot of politicians are like that. They like to hear themselves talk. And Washington and Benjamin Franklin kind of hit on something at the same time, but it doesn't appear that they were working in cahoots with one another. Ben Franklin stood up on the floor of the Continental or the Constitutional Convention and said, during the Continental Convention, when we were fighting for our freedom from England, we opened every session with prayer. We went to Providence to ask for his guidance. And it seems like here we're not doing it. And we're not getting anywhere. And Washington seized on that and made some speeches and wrote some memos. And Washington stood up and said a simple prayer that day. And they then opened every session of the Constitutional Convention with prayer. And in 4 to 5 weeks, they hammered out a document that has stood the test of time. I'm proud that we have people come up here and pray before we start a commissioners meeting. Yeah. There's counties in this state that have been taken to court. I hope this Board of Commissioners will continue to follow that tradition because it is the right thing to do. Merry Christmas, y'all.
And now we're going to take a 5-minute recess for the changing of guard. Oh. That's no reason to write it.
And I will turn the meeting over to Ray.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I have the distinct pleasure of swearing in the commissioners this evening. And so we'll have Vance Islet, Paul O'Neill, Kevin McCord, and David Riggs come forward.
individually?
Or do you want to?
Individually.
All right. Okay, we want to do them individually this time. Okay. Do you, Van Silent, solemnly and sincerely swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States, that you will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of North Carolina and to the constitutional powers and authorities which are or may be established for the government thereof, and that you will endeavor to support, maintain, and defend the Constitution of said state, not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States, to the best of your knowledge and ability, so help you God?
I do.
Do you, Van Silent, further swear that you will well and truly execute the duties of the office of Currituck County Commissioner according to the best of your skill and ability and according to law, so help you God?
I do.
Congratulations, sir. Okay. All right. Do you, Paul O'Neill, solemnly and sincerely swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States, that you will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of North Carolina and to the constitutional powers and authorities which are or may be established for the government thereof, and that you will endeavor to support, maintain, and defend the Constitution of said state, not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States, to the best of your knowledge and ability, so help you God?
I do.
And do you, Paul O'Neill, further swear that you will well and truly execute the duties of the office of Currituck County Commissioner according to the best of your skill and ability and according to law, so help you God?
I do.
Congratulations, sir. Kevin is a new commissioner. I'd like to introduce your lovely wife.
This is my wife, Christy McCord.
Do you, Kevin McCord, solemnly and sincerely swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States, that you will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of North Carolina and to the constitutional powers and authorities which are or may be established for the government thereof, that you will endeavor to support, maintain, and defend the Constitution of said state, not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States, to the best of your knowledge and ability, so help you God?
I do.
And do you, Kevin McCord, further swear that you will well and truly execute the duties of the office of Currituck County Commissioner according to the best of your skill and ability, according to the law, so help you God?
I do.
Congratulations. David Griggs is also a new commissioner to the board.
Hi.
I'd like to introduce your family.
I would. This is my wife Denise and my son Tyler.
Do you, David Griggs, solemnly and sincerely swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States, that you will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of North Carolina and to the constitutional powers and authorities which are or may be established for the government thereof, and that you will endeavor to support, maintain, and defend the Constitution of said state, not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States, to the best of your knowledge and ability, so help you God?
I do.
And do you, David Griggs, further swear that you will well and truly execute the duties of the office of Currituck County Commissioner according to the best of your skill and ability, according to law, so help you God?
I do.
Congratulations, sir.
I'd like to now turn the, I guess, the business part of this meeting over to our county manager, Dan Scanlon, for the election of our chairman.
chairman.
By general statutes, the first meeting in December of a county government is the meeting that you reorganize or organize yourself. So in this being our first meeting in December, I will open the floor for nominations for chairman of the Currituck County Board of Commissioners.
Mr. Scanlon, I'd like to nominate Paul O'Neill for chairman of the Currituck County Board of Commissioners.
Second.
Hearing no other nominations, all in favor of Paul being chairman, please say aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. Congratulations, Mr. O'Neill. You're now the chairman of the Currituck County Board of Commissioners. And I will turn the meeting back over to you to election of the vice chairman.
First, I'd like to thank the board for their confidence in allowing me to serve as chairman this year. And at this time, I'd like to take nominations for the election of vice chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to nominate Vance Idlet for vice chair.
We have a nomination of Vance Idlet for vice chairman. Do we have a second? Okay, I'll open the floor for further nominations. Hearing no second.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to nominate Paul Martin as vice chairman of the Currituck County Board of Commissioners.
I'll second that. And we have any further nominations? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of Paul Martin for vice chairman signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. Motion carries, and I will now declare a short recess to give the board and staff time to reorganize. I'd like to call the meeting back to order. The first order of business is approval of agenda. I have two items on the agenda. The first one is the add to the consent agenda, acknowledge receipt of proposed property tax schedules, standards, and rules from the tax assessor, and call for a public hearing on January 7th, 2013, and would like to remove item 2 in the consent agenda, resolution to declare computers issued to Commissioner Rohr and Etheridge as surplus. We have an approval, motion for approval.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is public comment. We have a lot of people signed up tonight for public comment and for our special use permits, and I'm going to ask Mr. McCree to keep the time. We allow 3 minutes for public comment, and I would ask that everyone please adhere to that so that we can move the meeting along. And at this time, I'm going to open the public comment, and the first person we have signed up is Wanda Burns.
Good evening. My name is Wanda Burns, and I'm here as a homeowner at Shingle Landing. I recently attended a meeting for our new homeowners association, which is a little bit curious. We were recently told we would have to assume a homeowners association. The current developers had formed this association, and we needed to assume control of it. This despite, and in fact, we will have a budget and an annual meeting scheduled for January of 2013, but we are not able to select a board at this time because we still need to have an amendment in order to do that for them to relinquish control. Despite that, of more important consideration is the concern of the railroad crossing that goes into that subdevelopment. The waiver that needs to be signed off on it, that's still a matter of issue concerning $5,000 or something that we need to pay. And also that the roads are not ready yet for turning them over to the state for maintenance. So despite all that, we are in a position where we've got to come up with a board that really doesn't have any idea what they're doing at this point, and we don't think we need to assume those issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Joe Drago.
I'm also homeowner in Shingle Landing, and I have been a realtor in North Carolina for over the last 10 years. And this was quite new to me, I'll have to say, because we were told that by one of the developers that the homeowner association, we could assume it as the owners. We would have that responsibility once the homes were 75% complete as far as the 80 lots, or we could appoint somebody or hire somebody to do management. Well, that hasn't happened, and nothing else has happened. I know they were given a special permit in June to get the roads up to speed, and that was 90 days. They were supposed to meet that in the end of November. It's been over 150 days, and until the state can take over the roads, whether we go with a homeowner association or not, the state can't assume that. And the state will take 6 to 9 months, they said, after the roads are brought up to date. We don't know when that's going to happen. And the other thing that I must say, and just tack this on, is that we have a public boat ramp at the end of our community, a public boat ramp. And we have a railroad crossing that we have to pay, negotiate with as far as a lease. It's $4,780. Now, everybody from Virginia and Kalamazoo can come across that railroad crossing and come to this public boat ramp. This doesn't make sense to me. And it doesn't make sense to me that they want to charge us for a homeowners association when there's nothing out there but grass and trees, and we take care of that. I just wanted that down as a matter of record. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next we have Don Williams.
Hello, my name's Don Williams. I'm the developer, at least the last one standing. I'd like to address the road situation. This misconception that nothing's been done. An email was sent to the county, to Ben Woody, Donovan, September 13th, stating that the roads met DOT standards in Phase 1. I made copies, took them to Ben Woody, and he has them in case they were missed along the way. As far as Phase 2 goes, we were supposed to bond the road, and during the process of Phase 1, we were asked by, Gretchen Byram more or less said, we're not going to take the roads over until we do Phase 2. So we said, okay, we'll do Phase 2. So we spent the money, did Phase 2. The roads, the asphalt's been approved. The roadside, there was dirt put down. Gretchen Byram asked us to redo the shoulders of the road. That takes a little process, takes a little time. We've done that, hydroseeded, and also the last item on the list was the stop signs. There were 24-inch stop signs, and now they want them 30 inches. So that's been done. And to my knowledge, everything's been done that's been required of us in a timely manner, as well as it can be when you're working with the state, nothing against them. But when you call for an inspection, they don't come out the next day. So, and as far as the railroad crossing, every year there's an annual fee. We pay the fee. In 2007, when we did this project, I really wasn't an active participant, but I've inherited, so I'm not going to address it. In 2007, somebody went out to Antonio, Texas, and got some sort of agreement with the railroad company that it would be okay to cross the railroad tracks. There was an existing public crossing to the north of that location. We wanted to center it so we go split the property, and that's what we did. The railroad company said, hey, you guys need to spend $130,000 on the railroad crossing. Our railroad crossing, $130,000. That's what we spent to put the crossing up there. Everything passed inspection in 2007. Didn't seem to be a big issue. as far as the railroad goes. If I thought there was going to be an issue with the railroad, I never got into the project to begin with. But here we are 5 years later, and everybody's making a big issue about the railroad tracks. You know, we're in communication with the railroad tracks. The fees have been paid. I think it was $4,600. I got a phone call last month that they were going to close the road down going into Shingle Landing. And it's amazing to me what people do and say before they find out the facts. And, you know, it bothered me. The fee's not due till December 1st. It got paid November 20th. So there's nothing in arrears, never has been in arrears. So we're covered on that.
That's time, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, anyway, bottom line is this. Just been a lack of communication. I'm a little disappointed with Commissioner Gilbert. Seems to me like, you know, instead of trying to help out in the situation, she's added fuel to the fire. And my understanding is doesn't really answer a whole lot of emails, doesn't return phone calls, but doesn't mind getting up there and, like I say, adding to the mob mentality and throwing gasoline on the fire. So I'm real disappointed with how she's handled things. And actually, I don't think she's really good for Currituck. And I don't think she's good for business in general.
Mr. Williams, we need to not make personal.
It's not personal. It's this. I'm a businessman, and this is a business decision. My livelihood is on the line. It's nothing personal. It's the way how she handles business in Currituck County. That's the end.
I understand.
Mr. Williams, you have my cell phone number. You have not used my cell phone number, so please feel free to call me at any time.
Mr. Tommy Hardison.
My name is Tommy Hardison, 112 Applewood Drive, Moyock. Mr. Williams has said everything that was done, but every time we turn around, we get a report it's not done. So I don't know who to believe no more. But I do believe one thing. He's talking about the railroad. If somebody don't pay this railroad crossing every year, we're not going to be able to get across there. And I don't think nobody out here can stop it neither if it happens that way, because the railroad owns the crossing. I don't know why they don't take the stop signals out and put stop sign up there. Then maybe it won't have no problem. But they won't do that, I don't guess. And one other thing too, I really would like to bring back the interconnected road that was supposed to be, maybe, hopefully, down at the Baxter Road development coming through. We really need that right now. We never know when this other railroad problem is going to come up. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Banks, you're signed up on the public comment, but you're for a specific item, so we'll hold you till then. Next, we have Miss Mary Waller.
Good evening. I live at 118 Creekside Drive in Shingle Landing. If you don't mind, I would like to split my time. I'll be real quick with somebody else who didn't get to sign in. And again, I want to bring up the railroad as well, because I received a letter from Gretchen Barnum saying that by no way the roads will be taken over by the state until the railroad issue is solved. And the railroad was not disclosed to anybody, and I would have to ask the county why they give the final plat without the railroad was already there. So obviously everybody knew about it, but nobody did anything, and now it's falling on us, and we just can't do that. We just can't. I'd like to give my time away. Thank you.
My name is Ron Milton from 218 Milliock Landing Drive in Shingle Landing. I appreciate this time to talk. I got in just before 7 o'clock and the sign-up sheet was already gone. I guess the question I've got, unfortunately I missed the November Commissioners meeting, but I watched it online, and in that meeting, Ms. Gilbert attempted to make a proposal to have Shingle Landing on the next on this meeting here. She was told by then the chairman that no meeting, I'm lost with a word right now. No action would need to be done, that it would be done at a later date when I guess you guys who decide what's on your agenda for this time. So during that discussion of that video, you guys can go back and watch that. It all alluded to having an action item on the agenda for this month for Shingle Landing. Well, it's not on the agenda. So what does it take from you guys to get Shingle Landing on the agenda? As Mr. Adlett in that video said, I know you guys per se can't do anything about the railroad issues, but it is a matter of public safety. You brought that up in that video. So you got the boat ramp, one of the things for the county use of the land. They're talking about the 20 acres, making that a public thing and some ball fields and stuff. How can you make the residents of Shingle Landing be responsible for that railroad crossing when half the county and another state has access to it, and hold our feet to the fire to make us have to pay for that? You guys have authorization on the plats on when these roads are developed, the final approval of how they're scheduled, where they're laid out on the lands. I don't want to say, I heard it, I don't know if it was Don that told, he kind of alluded to it before he left, Mr. Williams. The original plat for Shingle Landing had a road going out, not crossing that particular railroad. He said they brought it back in line in the center. If they'd have left it alone, then there wouldn't be no railroad fee today because there was already a crossing to the north. Those developers chose, and the county had to approve that deviation from the original plans. They approved that. So by moving the road further to center, making it to south, here we are talking about our railroad 5 years later. So between the public safety issues, the things that the county wants to do with 20 acres of county land, the boat ramp, the residents of Shingle Landing shouldn't have to foot the bill for the railroad crossing all by ourselves so the rest of the free world can come down that road and have access to county property. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That's the last person I had signed up for the Shingle Landing discussion. Before we move on, I want to ask Mr. Woody, are they in compliance with the requirements per the Currituck County Unified Development Ordinance?
In Phase 2, they currently are not. They have posted a performance guarantee for the work in Phase 2. In Phase 1, we have a drainage certification dated September 6th. We have a pavement certification, or an acknowledgement of the pavement being correct, dated September 11th. But there's still a few other outstanding items that need to be re-inspected by the Technical Review Committee. And what we've asked the developer to do is provide us a written certification from a public engineer that does that. So we need, what I'm saying is I think that we need to do an additional inspection and receive a certification to ensure that they are indeed in compliance with Phase 1.
Okay. Now I have a question for the county attorney. There seems to be the recurring theme of the railroad crossing and not wanting to be a part of a homeowners association. Could you please address that for the board and for the general public?
Well, of course, it's my understanding from reviewing some of the documents for Shingle Landing that persons who buy in that subdivision become a member of the Property Owners Association by virtue of the restrictive covenants. And so they then take on the responsibility as a property owner for certain improvements or maintenance of certain items that need to be taken care of. With regard to the railroad crossing, it's my understanding that at this point in time, as Mr. Williams alluded to, he as developer is making the annual payment that the railroad company is requiring in order to allow for the easement to be maintained into Shingle Landing across the railroad tracks. The ultimate goal is for the state of North Carolina to take over the roads within Shingle Landing, and it's my understanding as part of that process, they are looking for an additional fee from the developer in order to do a study by or for the railroad division of the North Carolina Department of Transportation to make a determination that the crossing meets their requirements and is suitable for them to accept it into the system. My understanding is that last week the developer said that they would make a payment. I was not in that meeting. That's required for that study to be conducted. Thereafter, I guess we're under the understanding on the staff level that if the study comes back acceptable to the state then will go forward and act on the petition, which, again, I understand has already been presented to the Department of Transportation for acceptance of the streets and roads into its system. Now, I guess we also understand that Phase 2 is going to be necessary for those streets to meet not only the county's requirements, but, of course, the North Carolina Department of Transportation requirements in order that DOT might take them into the system as well upon petitioning for those streets to be included in the DOT system. We further understand that DOT is not inclined to take, I guess, Phase 1 before Phase 2 or Phase 2 before Phase 1, but want to take all the streets into the system at one time. So that's why there appears to be some delay, at least on the part of the state, in moving forward and acting on taking all the streets and the railroad crossing and that responsibility into the state system. In the meantime, again, it sounds from what Mr. Williams is saying, he is at least has paid the fee for railroad crossing for the next year. Thereafter, it may become a responsibility of the homeowners association by virtue of their documents through their assessments or whatever fees that they apply to their property owners to pay for that as they would pay for any other improvement or necessity within the subdivision.
Go ahead. And those roads are private but dedicated to the public. So
yes, they've been dedicated to the public.
The public dedication cannot be taken away no matter what anybody does unless this Board of Commissioners votes to remove that public dedication. Is that not correct?
At this point in time, I'm not aware of any statutory process by which the public dedication might now be removed.
So we couldn't even remove that public dedication? No. Okay, so statutorily, the homeowners, through disclosure documents, I haven't seen them, but you're saying they were given documents telling them they would be part of a homeowners association.
I don't know what they were given at closing. As a regular part of closing, that would be provided in a closing package. Certainly those documents were of record. Restrictive covenants are recorded in the Office of the Register of Deeds and are available for public inspection at any time. And in North Carolina, of course, we have the rule, similar to many other states, caveat emptor, buyer beware, where it is ultimately the responsibility of the purchaser of property to know and understand the documents and agreements that they're entering into. I understand those are very complex documents, and the practice by many, including some attorneys, is not to necessarily read those documents, but indeed they are important and vital to the purchase of a piece of property.
So, and one last question, your opinion, where are we as a Board of Commissioners with the issues that continue to be raised, such as the railroad crossing? I know we have the railroad people can do more than anybody else in the world can. I mean, they pretty much have broad authority. Is there anything that this Board of Commissioners can do regarding the railroad crossing or the issue of the payment of that? Is that not between them and the developer, or is that a commissioner issue?
I think ultimately that's going to be between the developer and those persons who have purchased property within Shingle Landing subdivision. Now, the county is doing what it can
to nudge it along.
In order to push it along. This board, of course, has placed a condition upon the special use permit for Phase 2 that added in again Phase 1, although arguably Phase 1 had already met the requirements of road construction such that this bond was released appropriately under the Unified Development Ordinance. But you have done that with a special use permit to try to again push and require the developer to do something with the roads in Phase 1 in order that it might be taken into the state system. Secondly, staff under the Unified Development Ordinance issued a notice of violation a week or so ago, at least following your last meeting, maybe 2 weeks ago now, in which it cited the developers for failing to comply with certain conditions placed upon them and their special use permit. I think that's what precipitated a meeting that same week that quickly got the attention of the developers, and maybe has resulted in a clarification of those certifications that had already been received by the county, but also to help them understand that they need to meet the requirements of Phase 2 special use permit conditions and get this matter resolved once and for all.
Thank you, Mr. Petrie.
Mr. McCree, I asked at our last meeting, is Currituck House responsible for any of this railroad crossing fee? I mean, how can we track that down?
It's probably really going to come by virtue of the restrictive covenants and what properties are included within the restrictive covenants. I don't know right offhand whether the Currituck House property is included with the restrictive covenants. Mr. Woody is indicating that perhaps it's not.
I don't know.
And unless properties are included within the restrictive covenants and the requirement or the provision that assessments may be made against properties, then they cannot be required to pay an assessment or fee for whatever purpose that the homeowners association wants to expend funds, whether it be for the railroad crossing lease, whether it be for maintenance of common areas, things of that nature.
Well, I think this gentleman out here brings up, I know we've got a lot to do tonight, but I mean, there's a lot of people using the road that they're paying the fee for. And if the county's got property and we want to do a park there's a boat landing there, I think their point is very valid that, they're paying the fee and we know where we're going with that. So hopefully, is that something we can look towards?
I would say that's not unusual. Every subdivision in the county that has the street dedication language upon the face of the plat, if those streets have not been taken over by the state of North Carolina into the secondary road system, then it's the same situation. The public has a right to use and access those streets, and the property owners, particularly if there's an association, are responsible for the maintenance and upkeep of those streets.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, Mr.
I
Adams.
think from my perspective, I just still think we're talking about a separate issue. Agree with what Mr. Petrie says. WRC has a vested right of anything the railroad can block. The county has a vested right for anything that railroad can block, just as these folks that are sitting out here have a vested right. And so, I mean, to me, it's not, we all need to figure a way of making this thing come to some type of conclusion and get it fixed. That's all.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Could we ask the county attorney to meet with the people from Shingle Landing?
I'd be glad to. I've met with some individually and some by telephone, but I'd be glad to sit down and answer any questions they might have relative to North Carolina law and the county's authority and responsibility with regard to streets and roads in the state.
And have we notified WRC that there could be an issue with access?
Well, we haven't, because actually although WRC constructed that facility, that's county facility.
Okay. But you could, if the folks from Shingle Landing would contact you, you could set up a meeting and go over the ins and outs of this so they would have a better understanding of the issues.
I'd be glad to if they want to have some spokesman or lead of the community to make a contact with me, and we can set up a date, time, and place to have a meeting.
I think that would be
if they would like.
Very appropriate.
Sure.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it possible for me to say one thing?
You sure can. Ms. Waller, come say one more
Thank you
thing.
very much. I think the whole problem here is that even in the covenants, the railroad crossing was never disclosed, that we had any responsibility as far as the railroad crossing goes. So I think it's an issue of disclosure, and it wasn't in the public record.
Well, Ms. Waller, I want you to understand, none of us have seen any of that.
I understand. I would have brought mine had I realized it wasn't. I thought that Mr. Woody already had that.
We'd like to have one of y'all make contact with Mr. McCree and set up a time where a few of y'all could come and sit down and maybe he could give you some direction.
Okay.
Because I hate to see you coming every Monday
week.
night and then going away saying, well, they just haven't done anything.
Well,
we would like to have a resolution to your issues.
Exactly.
But we need you to meet with their...
And I will supply whatever I can. But also it's an issue how the homeowners association is intertwined here is because with the homeowners association, the CTX development are now in control of the homeowners association, which means that when they could assess us for the railroad crossing. It's okay to pay it for this year, but they'll be kicking the can down the road. We've already got a budget from the management company and a budget that they hope to send to us, and in there it has for the railroad insurance $3,200 per year that we are going to be responsible for railroad insurance. Well, if we don't pay that, it's kind of like holding a gun to our head. If we don't make these payments for the insurance or for the railroad, then our house will be put a lien on our property. And this is what it all comes down to.
Well, Ms. Waller, if they in fact have paid it, it was due December 1st. We have 12 months.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully.
And so the sooner we could get you with the attorney, hopefully he could point you in the direction that would help resolution.
Okay. Now, I just worry about conflicts of interest with all of this, too. So I just want us all to get this solved for everybody's concern. And for more than anything, for us as homeowners. Because it seems like we have been left with this burden, and it seems like it's been shoved under all the paperwork and just passed on to us without our knowledge at all. And that's the whole thing in a nutshell. Thank you.
Thank you. One last question, Mr. McCree. Aren't homeowners associations regulated by the North Carolina general statutes?
Yes, a couple of different chapters, and I've talked with Ms. Waller in particular about one, which is the Nonprofit Corporation Act, would be applicable, which gives members of the homeowners association, as members of the corporation, certain rights, and can make certain demands of the board of directors that currently exist. And then secondly, if this was created under the Planned Community Act, that act also gives property owners certain protections and rights relative to their membership in a property owners association.
Okay. Anyone else have any other questions of Mr. McCree or Mr. Woody? Okay. Ms. Gilbert is signed up for the public comment as well, and she's the last one.
I just wanted to remind everyone that the Currituck County Planning and Community Development will host a community meeting opportunity on Thursday, December 13th at 7 p.m. at the Moyock Middle School Gymnasium, which is at 216 Survey Road in Moyock. What we're going to do at this meeting is a short presentation by the staff about the small area plans, the last meeting on 9/24, and the upcoming plans process. This will be the opportunity for citizens to view maps and other data relevant to the Moyock Small Area Plan process, constructively share your opinions and thoughts about what matters to you in Moyock, vote on what matters most to you in Moyock, share your thoughts about the meeting and other relevant ideas to the small area plan, and through an anonymous survey. Please see the website. We have some participants that want to be part of the stakeholder committee, and we will make that decision and have that out the 1st of January. So I encourage you to please be at the Moyock Middle School on December 13th at 7 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gilbert. I'll now close the public hearing. We'll move to our public hearings, or public comments rather, and move to public hearings. Item A is consideration and action of PB 94-49 Currituck Club Phase 1A and 8A, request for an amended preliminary plat special use permit extension for Phase 1A and 8A. The two phases within the planned unit development consist of 30 residential lots. Mr. Woody?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is for consideration and action, and this is an extension request of a preliminary plat approval. The Board of Commissioners approved the 30-lot subdivision on February 7th, 2011, so the expiration would be February 7th, 2013. They're requesting a 2-year extension, which they're allowed to do under the UDO. 2-year extension would make would set the new expiration date of February 7th, 2015. Staff feels this meets the requirements of the UDO for an extension and would recommend approval. I can answer any questions you have.
Does anyone have any questions? Hearing none, we need a motion.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion.
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. Item B, public hearing and action, PB 12-23, Corolla Wild Horse Fund, request for a special use permit for an outdoor tour operation, horse tours. The property is located at 1129 Corolla Village Road, tax map 114H, parcel B, Poplar Branch Township. And anyone that wishes to speak in favor or in opposition to this needs to come forward and be sworn. That's your place, you left hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Woody.
My name's Karen McAlpin, and I'm the Executive Director of the Corolla Wild Horse Fund. I live at 1247 Lakeside Court in Corolla. Just wanted to say a few words. I'm sorry?
Wait, Mr. Woody's first.
Oh, sorry.
But I'm going to be fast, though.
Okay.
My mouse is broke and my computer's froze, so I wasn't paying attention. I'm sorry.
And I was looking down, so I apologize.
This is a special use permit request for an outdoor tour operator. And as the board knows, we've required these use permits for these businesses since 2009. The Corolla Wild Horse Fund existed at the old schoolhouse location in Corolla Village, for which they were issued a special use permit for an outdoor tour operator. They have subsequently moved locations, and they're now north of that north of the schoolhouse on the north side of Schoolhouse Lane. The old schoolhouse actually has a charter school in it now, so they are in need of a new use permit for their new location. I'll remind the board that when we do issue a use permit, the county issues it. It runs with the land, not the person or the business. So that's why Ms. McAlpin's here again, requesting not a continuance, but an actual new use permit. The property they're proposing to, or they are located at, and proposing the tour operation is its own general business. It's full service on our 2006 land use plan. What they're requesting is for 2 tour vehicles, each with a capacity of 5 patrons, to be located at that property. The special use permit criteria and staff findings are in your case analysis. I'm not going to read through those. I can answer questions if you have any. The Technical Review Committee has reviewed this request, and the TRC does recommend approval with conditions. There's a list of conditions that are in your staff report that are all related to the operations of outdoor tours. These conditions are assigned to every use permit we've approved to this point, so they're kind of par for the course. Probably the most important thing in this is we make sure staff does it, that parking is available. In this case, they have the exact amount of parking needed for their museum, offices, and 2 tour vehicles. So they're right on the money. Planning Board heard this case as well at their November meeting, and the Planning Board recommended approval. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Does anyone have any questions of Mr. Woody? Hearing none, Ms. McAlpin, would you like to say anything?
Yes, I just wanted to give a little bit of background on why we're doing this and the difference between a nonprofit charity and a business. From 1989 to 2001, the Wild Horse Fund was an all-volunteer organization under the Outer Banks Conservationists, and in 2001 we became a 501c3 standalone nonprofit. A nonprofit organization is formed for the purpose of serving the public benefit other than the pursuit or accumulation of profits for owners or investors. A nonprofit is an incorporated organization which exists for educational or charitable reasons from which its trustees or board members do not benefit financially. Any money earned must be returned by the organization and used for its own expenses, operations, and programs, and the organization does not exist solely for making a profit. The money that a nonprofit earns through fundraising and other activities can only be used to advance the organization's stated mission. Unlike a for-profit venture, profits cannot be distributed to individuals within an organization since individuals cannot claim ownership or a stake in the nonprofit entity. The Corolla Wild Horse Fund did not have full-time staff until late 2006. At that time, I was hired as the first full-time executive director, and we had a full-time herd manager and a part-time office manager. We now have 5 full-time staff and 7 seasonal employees. In 2006, when I came, 89% of the fund's budget came directly from the county. This fiscal year, the grant from the county, for which we are most grateful, now represents 16% of our total budget. The rest we raise ourselves. We do not receive any state or federal funds. Our staff are the ones that respond to the emergencies 365 days a year. We're the ones who get out of bed in the middle of the night when there's an emergency. We're the ones who hold the tubing while the horse is humanely euthanized. We're the ones who bottle feed the orphan foal every 4 hours. We maintain up-to-date records on every horse. We've initiated a highly successful nationwide adoption program, placing 51 horses from Texas to Maine, and we do follow up on each horse annually. We spend countless hours on the beach and in the community educating others about the Wild Horse Ordinance, and 4 of our full-time staff are qualified to act as sanctuary patrol officers. We document the location and health of the herd, as well as educating the public in the field. We work cooperatively with other groups in the county, and we're successful in having the colonial Spanish Mustangs designated as the North Carolina state horse, and with your support have worked diligently on legislation that would give them the same protection that the horses on Shackleford Banks have enjoyed for the last 15 years. We're the ones who annually count the herd from a private helicopter, keep the fences and cattle guard repaired, work with the Humane Society of the United States in Zoo, Montana, so our herd manager can administer a darted contraception program, operate a free wild horse museum where nearly 200,000 people are educated each year, and last week we received a grant for a new program called Wild About 4-H. We'll be providing gentled wild horses to 2 Currituck 4-H members who cannot afford to have a horse of their own. Our herd manager will be transporting the horses to the rural center with the goal of working with the children and the horses to ready them to compete in the state 4-H horse show. Our continued efforts to create awareness regarding the need for permanent protection and conservation of the wild horses has significantly increased the number of visitors coming to see them. I believe if the commercial tour companies were to answer honestly, their businesses, which were already successful, have exploded over the last few years, grossing hundreds of thousands of dollars. Last year, our board of directors approved an expansion of our trip of a lifetime, which is a benefit of membership. Even only going out 3 times a day, we've been able to generate significant amount of additional operating funds. Our goal is to become completely financially independent. In addition, our staff are acting as sanctuary patrol officers anytime they're on the beach and behind the dunes. Members riding along understand that there may be frequent stops for staff to educate people, to document a particular horse or horses, or to address an emergency at the direction of the herd manager. We recently received a grant from the Bruce G. Geary Foundation that will cover the cost of pre-event recording cameras and wireless microphones to be installed in all of our vehicles to assist in decreasing the level of horse-human interactions and violations of the Wild Horse Ordinance. In closing, I'd like to reemphasize that our goal is financial independence and stability. We do not operate from sunup to sundown or go out multiple times with multiple vehicles. Our trips are scheduled for 3 times a day between the hours of 8:30 and 4:30, and we do not do trips on Sundays. The trip of a lifetime is an opportunity for us to achieve our financial goals, provide visitors with current and correct information, have additional sanctuary patrol officers on the beach and behind the dunes, and provide the best care and protection possible for the North Carolina state horse. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions of Ms. McAlpin? At this time, I'll close the public hearing and ask the board for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move for approve PBE 1223 with the finding of facts, staff recommendations included in the case analysis.
I'll second that motion.
A second. Any further conversation? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item C, public hearing and action, PB 12-10, East Point Estates, request for a preliminary plat special use permit for 22 lots located on Knott's Island, 172 Marsh Causeway, tax map 46, parcel 3, Fruitville Township. And again, this is a
Some problem.
Special use permit. Anyone that wishes to speak in favor or in opposition to this needs to come forward and be sworn at this time. Seeing none, raise your right hand. Right hand.
The other right hand.
Yeah, the other right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Woody.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a request for a 22-lot subdivision off Marsh Causeway in Knott's Island. The 2006 land use plan designates this property as limited service, which does allow for low-density subdivisions. The zoning of the property is RR, which is residential recreational. This property shares that zoning designation with the Sandy Point Campground, and I say that because you don't really see that zoning district in many places, and most of Knott's Island is zoned agricultural. So this is kind of an unusual pocket in Knott's Island in the sense of it's zoned RR. Again, the site is 32 acres. They're proposing 22 residential lots, which comes to a density of 0.67 units per acre. The UDO does require open space. They are providing open space. It's required to have 6.5 acres. They're providing 7.1 acres within that open space. Dedication, they've set aside 20,000 square feet of water access. On the top of the page, on the north part of the tract by the water, you can see a dark, kind of bold line that's very narrow in width. That's the water access. That's a boat ramp. It seems narrow, but I've been assured that boats can get out of that ramp and into the water and have room to turn around. This property is a subdivision and it does have a use permit, so there are criteria and findings of fact that you have to make as a board. We've made suggested findings there in the staff report. I'm not going to read through each of those, but I can answer questions if you have those. The Technical Review Committee has also reviewed this preliminary plat request, and the TRC does recommend conditional approval. I want to take a minute to go through a couple of conditions. Most of those are related to pretty mundane stuff that they would just fix or revise the plan to indicate prior to submitting their construction drawings. The one thing I do want to spend a little time on is there's when this was reviewed initially, the North Carolina Department of Cultural Resources asked for what's called a Phase 1 archaeological survey. That was done. I don't think that, and that's done when North Carolina Cultural Resources has areas they think may be of any kind of significant archaeological heritage or have artifacts. They tend to ask for studies or work to be done. The developer completed the Phase 1 study. That didn't really show anything of significance in that study. The Department of Cultural Resources asked for a Phase 2 study to be done, which is an exhaustive or more detailed study. That is something that as a Board of Commissioners you can require as part of the use permit through a condition. You don't have to. That's up to you. I'll note that when the Planning Board heard this case, what they suggested and recommended was that the final plat have a note that indicates the potential presence of archaeological resources and provide some information for the homeowner to call or the developer to call should they find anything such as bones or anything of significance. So I just wanted to cover that real quickly and again reiterate that if you want to require a Phase 2 archaeological study, you would have to include that in your motion tonight. Otherwise, you could use a Planning Board's motion which required a note to be placed on the plat. And Planning Board also heard this request and did recommend approval with that extra condition I just went through. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions the Board has.
Questions of Mr. Woody?
Yes.
Yes, sir, Mr.
Mr. Woody, the archaeological study. Okay, you were talking about the Planning Board put a letter that the homeowner or whatever would notify someone if something was found?
Yes.
Okay. I'm trying to figure out between the two deals. One, I'm sure, is a full-blown study of some kind, correct?
Yeah, the Board could require a full-blown study. The state of North Carolina doesn't have the power to do that, so they've asked you to consider that.
The state does not have?
Does not have the power to require that, no. So they've asked you to consider that. The full-blown study, I think, is fairly expensive. It's a pretty significant undertaking, but the alternative to that, requiring that full-blown study, would again to place a note on the plat that would basically make buyers aware that there may be archaeological resources on the property.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else have questions?
I do. Mr. Woody, looking at the boat ramp there, just another place to put in over there. Is there any parking or anything designated that? I couldn't see that from the sketch or looking at the map. Is there any place where you could actually put a boat in and actually leave it, or is this just for the community?
There's not, but this is just for the community. So it's a private boat ramp for this community.
And do you have any idea what the depth of water is right there on that shore?
It's an existing boat ramp. It was part of the. I don't know what the depth is, sir, but it's an existing ramp that was part of the old campground.
Shallow, Mr. Martin.
Yeah.
Okay, very shallow. That's what I thought. That's hard to get into even at normal. And I was wondering, if you were going to add that amenity there, that there should be some type of dredging done, and that's a horrible word around here, to provide that access and that amenity to the subdivision. I would just make a suggestion to that. If to do a good job with it, that would be something that I would definitely urge you to do in consideration for the people who will be using it in the future. That's all I have to say.
Anyone else?
Seems as though I believe I did see some parking, Mr. Woody, in some designated parking in that long section.
There's a turnaround. There's a notch that comes out, but I think that's so you can you can get your vehicle and trailer turned around and get in and out. So
I may be mistaken. I thought I seen something that said parking.
Can I ask one question, Mr. Woody? Mm-hmm. You said the state typically recommends these archaeological studies, but they don't send any money.
No, sir.
And they don't have authority to require it.
No, they rely on the local jurisdictions to require those as permit conditions.
The reason I'm asking is the county required one of a developer some time back. It cost a huge amount of money, and nothing came of it. And they were pretty upset to have to spend that kind of money when it was not a requirement of the state.
I'm familiar with that. And that's why we try to, as staff, we try to do a good job of kind of laying that on the table so you guys understand what you're approving.
Mr. Woody, if the letter, what would that entail? If something was found later, what would the letter entail to the?
It'd just be a note on the recorded document. I think it's almost more important that be available to the developer and builders, because they're the ones that are really going to be digging in swells and infrastructure and things. And I think we've had this discussion with the developer, and I think they're prepared to comment on how they'd like to address that as well tonight.
Well, I guess if at some point later on somebody went to put in a swimming pool and they found artifacts of some sort, is then the burden of everything then turned to the homeowner who has bought the lot, or is that? I'm trying to figure out the liability point.
There's not a liability, though. It's just a note on the plat that would say that there's archaeological resources may be present on this property. We got to get the wording. And if found, please contact the Department of Cultural Resources at blank. So it's not a burden, or it's not intended to be a liability or a burden. It's just intended to make folks aware that if you find something, some bones or pottery or whatever, it may have some sort of historical significance.
So the state then could not come in and say, okay, you stop your digging, you can't dig anymore because of this or this or this. Mm. Okay.
You'd have to make that a condition of your approval.
All right. This time I'm going to open the public hearing, and Mr. Massey would be glad to hear any comments that you have.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, again, I'm Clay Massey with Bowman Consulting, and we help prepare the plans for the project. And maybe to address a couple of the comments that came up in the discussion with Mr. Woody, we did have a phase one conduct archaeological investigation. It was an $8,000 study. There was no findings. The archaeologist kind of focused on the riverbank, which is where the prehistoric development would be, and we're certainly in concurrence with the county. I think the prudent choice is to add some very prominent notes to both the plans and the plat, identifying that the potential is there. But the fact that it was a campground, it's been pre-developed, we did conduct a study. We feel the likelihood of particularly this development of finding something would be very unlikely. Part of the reason is most of the infrastructure is placed quite a bit away from the of the water. And to address the second part, even though the Platts it's very small, a narrow area, it's about 40 feet wide. So from a small user of the ramp, and I think the point of the shallow water is certainly a consideration, but there is plenty of room in a parallel type situation. There's a turnaround that meets the fire department requirements to be able to access to the ramp that set the dimensions for that turnaround space. So we feel for 22 lots, it's kind of an unofficial type parking, but there is available room for boat ramps and kayak launches and different things that folks would want to use. And with that, I'm also available for any questions.
Yes, sir.
I travel that road every day. I have some big time heartburn with where your access coming into the property is. Mr. Woody, can you go back to the first photo first picture that you put up? Okay, yeah, right there. As you see, coming on Knights Island, there's a curve that kind of goes to your left to start with.
Yeah.
It goes to your left, and then immediately comes back around to your right. The sight line, as you come back to the right, you're in the center of apex of that curve before you ever see the entrance to your development there. It's 140 feet. Speed limit there is 55 miles an hour. I myself just tried to see what kind of braking it would take to do that. Speed limit's 55. Generally, 60 is the norm.
Right.
So, as usual, but I had to very, very hard, unsafe get on my brakes to even think about stopping where your entrance is now. I certainly, for me to feel comfortable with this, I want to put some type of language in there to where there's a traffic study by a competent or certified or whatever, engineer of whoever I understand and I realize y'all are going to be taking some timber out, some trees out, but the thing that concerns me is where the road actually goes off to your left to start with, your sight line, if you're keeping your eye on oncoming traffic and on the road itself, you're not looking back to your right to see who stopped around the curve over on the other side. So there's certainly my perspective, in my opinion, is certainly a hazard there, and last thing I want to see is someone get run over and killed there.
And I agree. As we're here tonight for the plat, which is the subdivision itself, and I agree, Mr. Supervisor, that we can add the sight lines, sight distance lines in both directions for both the left and right turning vehicles that would meet the criteria for a stopped vehicle, both making a left and make a right turn, and not only for the stopped vehicle coming out of the subdivision, but also for the public traveling on Marsh Highway, that they could see the stopped vehicle.
So you're willing to accept that as a condition?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and ask the board for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve PB 1210 with the finding of fact, staff recommendations included in the case analysis with the optional condition. A traffic safety study of the subdivision entrance sight distance shall be provided prior to the approval of the pre-construction plans. The study shall be reviewed by the TRC to determine necessary improvements and or maintenance of the development for safe sight distance.
We have a motion.
I'll second that motion.
Have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Next agenda item is item D, public hearing and action on PB 12-20, Harbinger Land and Timber request for conditional zoning from agricultural A and residential R to conditional district residential CD-R of 84 acres in Moyock on the west side of Pointers Road and north and south sides of Elrod Road, tax map 31, parcels 1A, 1B, 1D, 15A, and 17A, Crawford Township. Mr. Woody, before we start this, somebody has the public comment sign-up sheet in the audience, and I have to have that before we can get going. If people want to speak, we had a sign-in sheet, and somebody's got it. Okay, I guess we'll take them as they come. This is not a special use permit, so it does not require anyone to be sworn in. So we will be observing the 3-minute rule with Mr. McCree. Man in the clock. Mr. Woody, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a conditional zoning request, as this board has become familiar with. A conditional zoning allows a applicant to propose a zoning change for their property, but they're also able to attach a conceptual plan or a site plan, so to speak, that illustrates what you're considering from a zoning perspective. In the old days, you had to consider a zoning for whatever it may be with uncertainty. The conditional zoning adds some certainty to the request. This particular rezoning request is taking several tracts of land that'll be combined for one development project and proposing to uniformly zone those pieces of land to conditional district residential. Currently, you can see the zoning there. You basically have a residential zoning swath that follows the southern alignment, or follows the Tolls Creek Road alignment, several hundred feet south of Tolls Creek Road. So you've got some split zoning on some of these parcels, and the remainder of the parcel or the tracts are Zone A, which is agricultural. And those zoning districts have been established since the 1989 zoning map. Our 2006 land use plan, which guides our development, designates the area as primarily, it's hard, the colors wash out on the screen, but majority of the tract is zoned or is designated limited service. And then where you see the tree lines to the south, really what's mostly undevelopable land is designated conservation. The limited service designation provides for primarily residential development at low densities with a maximum base density of 1 unit per acre. So what that is saying is that this area has been designated for 1 unit per acre residential development. And the conservation designation in the land use plan, of course, is areas that shouldn't be developed and serve critical habitat and are better off left in open space or undeveloped or some sort of natural state. This particular tract of land would be proposed to be served by county water. There's a county water line that runs along Pointers Road, and wastewater would be provided by on-site septic systems on the individual lots, which is pretty typical for Currituck. There are wetlands on this tract of land, according to our GIS information. The wetlands haven't been delineated yet, but they'll have to be, should this move forward as a subdivision, the wetlands would have to be delineated prior to the preliminary plat coming back to you. So I just want to note that. Soils on the property range from suitable and marginally suitable to unsuitable. So there's a mix of soil types. Certain portions of the property are better than others for development, which again is pretty typical for Currituck County. Based on the request, and I'm going to get into this in a second, the original request, the density was 0.58 units per acre based on the total development site. So that's when you take the total as a whole and come up with the density. It's less. It's about a half unit per acre. But of course, that again, that's different than lot size. The density represents clustering lots, looking at the site as a whole. So in that context, it's not particularly high density, but they are proposing 40,000 square foot lots that are clustered. This, as a conditional zoning request, did require a community meeting. They held a community meeting prior to coming before the planning board. That was held on October 17th at the Moyock Library. I certainly think the developer will address that meeting in some detail, but real quickly, neighborhood concerns expressed at the meeting was the 40,000 square foot lot sizes being smaller than surrounding lot sizes, traffic on Elrod Road, which is a road that connects to Pointers, soil limitations for on-site septic systems, and the potential incompatibility with an existing home-based seafood business. So again, that's a summary of issues that arose at the community meeting. The Technical Review Committee has reviewed this rezoning request, and we review it for consistency with the land use plan and the UDO. The TRC has recommended approval of this request from agricultural and residential to conditional district residential. There's a number of items we kind of addressed in our approval. The TRC, most of those are things that would be handled as this move forward, if it does as a preliminary plat. One thing the TRC noted was some additional buffering in the form of open space or vegetation adjacent to the approved commercial fishing use. That's kind of an issue that's been discussed. And you can see on this original, I want to take a minute to show you the plan. On the original plan, Tolls Creek is to the north on this diagram. Elrod Road is a road that kind of goes east-west to the middle of the diagram, and of course the southern part of the tract is where you see a cul-de-sac down there. The original plan showed those lots, the rezoning boundaries, including that land, and you see how the lot layout, the lots are kind of pushed or focused down closer to Elrod Road. What staff has suggested to the developer, and he's agreed to do, is, and I'll show you a revised plan, is actually take those lots and cluster them or push them up closer towards Tolls Creek Road to try to get the residential density closer to Tolls Creek Road, where we have historically had subdivisions and that type of development, and to limit the effect it has, or limit the kind of the sprawl of the lots down Pointers Road towards the more rural areas. So you can see there basically the cul-de-sac and the lots that were on the south side of the request have been moved up to the open parcels on the north side of the request. And also what the applicant has proposed and is suggesting is that the scope or the breadth of the rezoning be reduced. You can see the bold black line would be the new limits of the rezoning change. So it would limit the amount of agricultural that's being proposed or asked for conversion to residential zoning. And I want to say it takes it from about 80-something acres of residential zoning down to the 46 or so. So it takes a number of acres out of the rezoning request. So that's one thing to note. The distance from the southern edge of the lot, from the zoning line, from where the zoning line previously was, is about 500 feet. So they basically moved up the zoning line 500 feet north. One thing staff did, and this is from a technical standpoint, is cul-de-sacs aren't always ideal, but one thing it does, by having these cul-de-sacs, it also reduces some of the curb cuts that are on Pointers Road, which is a good thing too. So we've tried to kind of work with the developer to repackage this and limit the scope of the zoning request. Now, I want to note one thing before I conclude my presentation. The rezoning line was moved northward, and you see how the lots are clustered. At a future date, that doesn't preclude that remaining agricultural zoned property from being developed. So I just want to say this isn't a condition that says there can be no development on the ag zoned land. It just takes the residential zoning and moves it northward. So I just want to be upfront about that. I'm not aware of any intention to develop the ag land, but I just want to say that you can develop it as agricultural zoned land.
How many acres is that?
I'm not sure. I'd have to get the 30 probably, perhaps, but I'd like to have the engineer for the applicant verify that. He probably knows that.
I don't know how you'd access it, but
You got a road coming in on that top subdivision.
But that's kind of how the plan has changed since it was placed in your packet. The planning board did hear this request at their November meeting, and they recommended approval of the original request, actually. So this has been revised since that recommendation. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
You want to have any questions of Mr. Woody?
I'd like to ask him one. Why was it revised from the initial response? Was that to take into consideration some of the objections that they had?
It was to take into consideration some of the concerns expressed at the community meeting. And I also note that staff had expressed concerns originally about having some buffering to the southern end of the property. So I think it also took into consideration some of the staff concerns as well.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Woody, exactly where is the property with the seafood company? Is that on Elrod?
It is south of that. Let me see if I can find my pointer. It's on the very southern extreme of this map. Let's see if we can see it on an aerial photograph.
Is it on Pointers?
Right.
Yeah, it's right here.
Right there.
And there's a 500-foot buffer now being put between that and the closest lot.
Yeah, it was here.
Is that the seafood right here?
On the original. It's there. Yeah, it's not, again, it shifts the zoning line, the proposed zoning line, 502 feet north.
Yeah.
The yellow highlighting I put up there is where the commercial seafood operation is, which is, I'll say, is a permitted home-based commercial seafood operation. So that is a permitted use there.
So there's going to be an additional 500 feet that the developers added between the seafood company and the first house.
Yeah, he's moved the zoning line north 500 feet.
Mr. Woody, if I may, the yellow highlighted area, is that just the front of his property, or I mean, because I believe doesn't he back up to the woods?
Yeah, the yellow highlighted property is actually the rear part of the property. Yeah, that's where the wood line would be.
All right. Any more questions?
Does the 500 feet go along the whole boundary line through the woods, or just right there where the seafood company is?
That's the whole boundary line.
Anyone else? Hearing none, I'm going to open the public hearing. I don't have a sign-up sheet, so I don't know who signed up. So if you raise your hand, I'll recognize you, and you can come forward and speak. If anyone wishes to speak to this issue, I'm going to let you go last, Mr. Hyman. Ms. Rose? And I forgot to ask everybody to give your name and address for the record. Let's try to get back on track. My fault. And give your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. I'm Janet Rose, 212 Pointers Road, Moyock. Live on the property adjoining this proposed subdivision. Earlier tonight, when some of you were sworn in, you were reminded that you need to do what is best for Currituck County. I just want to remind you of that one more time. I've lived in Currituck my whole life. We purchased this property in 1996 and built a house here in 1997. We started this home-based seafood business in 1999. We absolutely have no problem with this property being developed as agriculture, 3-acre lots. That would go along with their current neighborhood. Most of the lots in their area are 2 acres, 5 acres, 7 acres, 12 acres. That's where we live. As was mentioned by Mr. Woody, there is a large portion of land close to this proposed development that is conservation. We'd like to keep the animals and what have you in our area. I do have concerns about the seafood. It was mentioned by the planning board that when this development comes to fruition, it be noted on the plat that there is a seafood business nearby. I would like that also. The developer, Mr. Dunstan, has made several changes since this was initially planned, and I do appreciate that. However, I still have concerns. I have concerns about future rezoning of that agriculture property. And Mr. Petrie and Mr. O'Neill, you both said loud and clear, he has put in a 500-foot buffer. Yes, he has. Is that 500-foot buffer going to stay there when we come up in another year or two and want to change that agriculture zone into residential? And I also heard someone say, I don't know how in the world we're going to access that agriculture property. Mr. Woody, can you put that map back up there?
This is the proposal. It's on the screen.
Have you got a map up there with my property?
I do.
Okay, well, there is a right-of-way between our property and what he's purchased that goes back to the woods behind us. So I would imagine that right-of-way that almost touches the seafood building is what would be used to access that property. And then what happens to our 500-foot buffer? You all have heard a lot tonight about Shingle Landing. You've got problems there. I have no idea what that property was originally, but I would be willing to bet it was agriculture that was rezoned to residential. Mr. O'Neill, do you remember? Mm-hmm. Okay. I ask that you think about this. Again, We have no problems with reason. It's his property. He certainly can develop it. And I personally like what he's come up with better than before. But it really doesn't fit with their neighborhood. And I am concerned about what's going to happen with that agriculture property in a few years that's left. Thank you.
Mr. Woody, I have a question of you. What is the density being proposed now versus what was proposed before? Because it looks to me that they've taken off some lots.
It's probably a few lots less, the density that's being proposed. They have a zoning condition that says they can't exceed, the zoning is a proposed 54-lot single-family subdivision, and that condition remains, but still a 54-lot single-family subdivision. It's just been clustered in a different part of the site.
And what's the total acreage? 84?
84, yeah.
And the request is 54 lots.
Yeah, and there's probably another 50 acres that Mr. Dunson owns that is the conservation areas. It's completely wooded and not developable. So that would.
That's the density for the north track with the changes, 36 lots. One lot for every acre and a half, one lot for every 2 acres down here on this page.
Mr. Hyman's got some density calculations that he can share with you.
Okay, when he comes up, we'll let him do it then.
It's the total land holdings are probably around 130 acres, I believe. So when this goes as a subdivision, most likely it will go under that total 130-acre tract, with the vast majority of that remaining conservation or open space, just because it's not developable. That would be the gross density.
And this slither of 500 foot cannot be put into conservation as part of the approval, if it were to be approved?
It couldn't be now because they've submitted a request that just actually completely takes it out of the zoning request. Now, if that remained, or if that 500-foot buffer area was included in the CDR rezoning, then you could place conditions on the development of that 500-foot area. But if that 500-foot area is removed from the zoning request, then it really just remains ag as it is today.
Okay. Anyone? Who's next? Mr. Banks.
While Mr. Banks is coming up, Mr. Woody,
yes, sir.
Mr. Woody, I want to make sure that I understand this 500-foot buffer. Once it's established, whether it's conservation or not, it's established, and can it be changed down the road?
You can always request.
Or you can develop.
You can always request a zoning change for any parcel in the county, so that's always possible.
But if it's put in conservation, you can still take it out of conservation and move it over?
Conservation's a land use plan designation. So the 500-foot isn't a buffer per se. It's just they're not incorporating that or including that area in the rezoning request.
But if it were put in the conservation area, we don't have to worry about that down the road.
You would have to include it in the rezoning request, and then as part of that, you would have to propose a condition that limited its use. And the applicant, in conditional zoning, the applicant has to agree to the conditions that you propose. So you'd have to reincorporate that back in the zoning request, and then add conditions of how that property is used, or managed, or developed.
Thank you,
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
But as I understand what you have stated, that would be off the table for the purposes of what we're acting on tonight, because that parcel, that 500-foot piece, is not part of the equation of what we're talking about tonight. Is that correct?
The developer has proposed to reduce the scale of the rezoning request, thereby not making that part of what you're considering. You could ask the developer if they would reincorporate that or include that in the zoning request. I don't know. I'd have to ask the county attorney if that's appropriate. I would assume reducing the zoning request, the board has the discretion of accepting that reduction or not.
Yes, I think that's correct.
Okay.
All right. Mr. Banks, please give your name and address for the record, sir.
All right. I'm Clifton Banks. I live on 171 Pointers Road. And I'm opposing this project for several reasons. I spoke at the planning board meeting and the library also, and like Janet and I was talking earlier, this here land is all surrounded by big acreage, big lots. We all got big lots around it. The smallest lot that's north of me goes towards Tullis Creek Road is about 2 acres at the very smallest. And this land is not suitable for anything like this. I'm going to tell you that strongly. I've lived on this road my entire life. My father used to farm part on the Elrod farm anyway years ago. But anyway, this land will not hold this high density lots. I'm going to tell you that right now. This land is what we call good farmland. It's got a high water table through it. I've got the same land where my house is right across the street from it. I've got the land that I purchased back in '95. I purchased from Mr. Joe Johnson. He came to this county. He was going to take them 2 lots of mine. He was going to run a road right between it, right in the middle. He was going to put a cul-de-sac and all through it and put houses on each side. And it would not perk. This land would not hold it. And you can sit on Pointers Road, look on both sides. It's the same type of ground, same height. There's no difference. And so that tells you right there what this land is capable of doing. When I built my home there, I had to go, Mr. John Baum perked my land, and then we had to go 3 different places I own 22 acres here almost. I'm on one of the 10 or 11 acre parcels. I had to go 3 different places to find it. Like I told them at the planning board, this land will perk in certain places. It's, right along about where the cemetery is, there's a little ridge in there. That land right through there would probably perk. But when you get, this land goes sort of like a housetop sort of. And when you go down, it just drops off. So anyway, the other thing I'm going to bring up is these are the same 2 parcels of land. And Paul, I don't think you were there, but anyway, I know Owen and them was there. Mr. Woody and them and the planning board passed this proposal a couple of weeks ago. These are the same 2 parcels of land that was brought to the Board of Commissioners about 5 years ago, and it was denied. It was denied by the planning board, and it was denied by the county commissioners. There was a company out of Virginia Beach that was going to purchase this land. They were going to put houses onto it, and I guess they didn't even bother checking this land because they automatically came out that they were going to run a sewage. They were going to hook all the houses up to sewage to start with, because at the same time, the land in Moyotte, where the library is, was purchased by another company, and they were going to pump the sewage from there to that housing development because they were going to put up a huge sewage plant. Now, I don't know if these 2 companies, these 2 developers or whatever, are the same. But anyway, that tells you right off to start with what this land is about. And like I said, Mr. Baum, when we perked my land and everything, it was we had to go 3 different places. And he told me right exactly, and I know it. It's just it holds a high water table. So, and as far as this here, where he's changed the development, that's something else that's kind of got me. This is like I don't know how to say this, but anyway, I've told Janet, and then when they were talking about this, that you better make sure that this cannot be redone, down the road. I ain't talking about 5 or 10 years from now. I'm talking about never. That he can't come back and want to put houses here because, listen, y'all know yourself, the bottom line is these developments that's been brought in this county hasn't done nothing but cost this county. This county doesn't make a dime off of these developments. It costs the taxpayers to pull the tab and fill up for everything that they bring in, for extra law enforcement, EMS, fire, whatever. So, you need to consider this, and one more thing, you need to consider this too, not just with this development and all, but you remember this, back in 2006 and 7, there was a lot of rezoning in this county, from Point Harbor to Moyotte. And my point is this, there's a lot of developments that hasn't got started. There's some that just maybe a fourth done. My understanding is our schools in Moyotte, Shawboro and all, that even the new school are at their max. And, as a taxpayer and all, and I've lived in this county just like a lot of other people my entire life. And I don't think we need to be footing the bill for everything, and the developers come in, drop what they want to do, and then let's go. We've got the taxpayers of this county. We're the ones that stuck with everything. So I just wish y'all would consider this. And like I said, this land, like I said, is not capable of holding a high density lots of this sort. And we recommended at the library and all that, for it to be, the 10-acre lots. And whatever, and it would go good for that. But anything like this is not. And I'm going to tell you something else. On the back side where the church owns, I'm going to say, I guess you would say on the north side, that is low, definitely. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. McCree. Time.
I thought he was about to stop a couple times,
okay.
Mr. Chairman.
And I did take a 2-year sabbatical myself in 2007 and 8. Anyone? Yes, sir. Mr. Etheridge, please.
My name is Milton Etheridge. My aunt has property at 170 Corners Road, which adjoins to this. My saying is this, I listen, maybe down the road somewhere I may be coming before you are to ask for something. But listening, you all had a presentation brought before you, and I'm hearing a lot of ifs. And I wonder how could you all prove of something like this, one way or the other, with a lot of ifs without being indirect of what you're doing. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next. Yes, sir.
Commissioners, good evening. My name is Richard Royals. I live at 190 Elrod Road. I live to the west of the parcels that you're talking about. I'm, if you look at the, about right where that L is, I'm, if you will, the two little circles, which is farm field that I have farmed. Agreeing with Mr. Banks, who I knew his father farming, talking to my dad, which lives at 204 Elrod Road. Those are 25-acre lots. I own one, lot 4. My mother and father live lot 5, 25 acres. When we bought these parcels all the way down Elrod Road, all the way back to the creek, they were in 25-acre lots. Now, I wasn't raised in Currituck County. I came from Chesapeake. I moved to Currituck because I got tired of the population of what you get in Chesapeake. Chesapeake don't hear you like Currituck does. This is farmland. Residential is right here. It's farmland. It's farm people. And what this is going to do, it won't perk. I got 2 septic tanks. My mom and dad have 2 septic tanks. Just put one small dwelling. How are you going to put that many houses in that bit of property? You can't do it. It won't perk. It won't sewage. You're in a lowland as it is. I moved from Chesapeake to raise my kids in peace and quiet. I've enjoyed it. I just retired last December. Now I get to enjoy peace and quiet. I don't think so. Now, let me ask you something. Would you like to have a grandstand sympathy or a rock band in your backyard? Think about it. I'm not saying that this is going to happen overnight. I'm all about development happening. I was with Moyoc Volunteer Fire and Rescue. I know what it's run to run up and down these streets. I've done it as a volunteer. And there's 2 people sitting right beside me that can vouch for what I'm saying. Think about when you take fire and rescue, police, to take care of all this. All I'm saying is think before you say yes. Would you want this in your yard? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Who was next? Mr. Rose. Restate your name and address, please.
My name is Paul Rose. I live on 212 Pointers Road. I own the property that's on the south side with the seafood business. And a brief history of myself and all. I've lived in this area my whole life. Was actually born in Moyock. One of the few can say I am a born resident of this county. I'm thankful for it. But we farmed a lot of this land. And over time, the land has been turned down because of PERC. You know, we're around a creek. We have a lot of low land. Mr. Dunstan and Mr. Hyman have been nice with working along with us on this. One of my questions was, well, is this 54 new lots already being added? If not, there's already 10. So now we're at 64. 5 on the south side of Elrod, 5 on the north side. Has that been added in? Mm-hmm. So is that part of the 54? Okay. Mm-hmm. Just one of the points I wanted to ask. I weren't quite clear on that one because it's marked off. But anyway, they have worked good, and if it's worked out as a buffer along for people, I can live with it. But if it's going to change down the road, well, then it's not a buffer. It's not a conservation. You know, when we put stuff like this, as y'all have known with the problem you're having there in Moyock with the Shingle Landing Road, things going to come back and bite you in the butt down the road if you don't think ahead. And a lot of this is on your backs. You are the ones that look for the future and are trying to plan and give us an idea of what we want our county to look like. As it's been over time, everybody's shot from the hips. It's like graffiti on the side of an overpass when you ride by it. You know, you want to read it, but it's just changing along. We need to cut ourselves a little bit, keep ourselves in the idea of the area that the people are living in and what is there. You can't go along and change it. A lot of these lots around it are large lots. The people around it have kept it that way. Most of the development along the way along Tulls Creek Road in this area, has been large acreage lots. And that's for a reason. It is because of the perkability of it. And I just kind of like to keep the amount of lots down that we can and get by with. I know we can't tell him completely no. And Mr. Dunstan and Mr. Hyman have been good. They have been real nice, and they have worked with me on it. And just like to make sure that if we do get our buffer, it stays as a buffer. It can't come back down the road, be added on or changed. I know that sounds like a far-fetched, but if it's going to be buffer, it's got to be buffer, or it's got to be left agriculture. That means farmland. Doesn't mean we keep taking farmland away and redesignating it for what we want it to be. With that, I'd like to thank y'all for your time, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. Who's next? Yes, sir. While you're coming up, let me ask Mr. Woody a question. I heard a lot about the property perking. Do we require any initial perk test on anything and before it becomes as a preliminary plat?
We do. We require a perk test before you approve it as a preliminary plat.
So they would have to perk each lot if it went beyond.
Yeah, you'll have another shot at this and be able to ensure that the lots perk. And just anecdotally, I was thinking, and if this is the rezoning request, but and you have some ability to establish buffers in the rezoning request, but you also will have some ability to establish buffers as part of the preliminary plat, because that's processed with a use permit as well. So,
but the only way that 500 foot could be a permanent buffer is if it's designated as conservation and made part of the rezoning approval, correct?
That, or if that were done when the preliminary plat submitted, if this land is included in the subdivision request, which I think it will be, and it could be a condition of the use permit for the preliminary plat. But tonight, the only way to do that is through a zoning condition, which requires it be incorporated back into the zoning request.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Bill Hancock. I live at 145 Pointers Road, just north of Richards Lane. The homes that are up and down Pointers Road, especially the area that's going to be developed, as I understand, the new construction is going to be about 1,600 square feet per home, with a value of about $199,000. Is that accurate?
I don't know. The board can't consider values as part of the rezoning request, so I'm not sure.
So the size of the homes, are they about 1,600 square feet?
I don't know.
No idea. There's not a home on Pointers Road where this construction takes place that is probably under 3,000 square feet. So if we can't talk value, that should say something for the type of homes that this subdivision is going to be placed next to. My wife and I run up and down Pointers Road as well as Elrod every day, and it should be designated as an official racetrack for the state of North Carolina. The traffic that goes up and down that road at 55 miles an hour is crazy. And now you're going to bring additional homes at a large church, I understand, and put it on Tulls Creek, and they're already complaining about the traffic issues. In the summertime, folks have figured out it's closer to take Tulls Creek than it is to take 168. So Tulls Creek traffic flow is becoming greater and greater as more people find out that it's a shortcut to 168. Add the additional burden of the new homes going in, plus this church that's going to sit right at the corner. I think you're going to have safety issues that you're going to have to deal with in the future. I wouldn't know a perk or pert if I stepped on it, okay? But I do know that when my wife and I run up and down Elrod Road, no matter how long it's been dry or if it's rained, the water down where the Richards live at the end of Elrod Road goes up and down. It fluctuates, not depending upon the weather. So initially when I moved here, I often thought that was a part of the tidal flow that takes place. I don't know if it is or not. But the people that I've heard tonight have got to impress you with respect to the suitability of that property when it comes to whether it can actually support that sort of construction. It's a nice place. I'm a recent resident of Moyock and of North Carolina, and I hope things change. Hope things do not change out on Pointers Road. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Robert Smithson, and I live at 137 Pointers Road, adjacent to Mr. Hancock. And I'd like to kind of reiterate what Ms. Rose began the discussion off with. This subdivision and a rezoning to the density that they are proposing is really incompatible with the neighborhood. The average lot sizes now are agricultural / residential around 2 acres, anywhere from 2 to 10 acres. Again, they brought up multiple times about the perking of the land. Most of the houses in the area already have to bring in like 2 feet of sand just to be able to put in a qualifying septic tank. Again, the traffic would be an issue as well. Going down, I don't think the traffic and the safety will be able to handle that type of density. So I would like to request that y'all really consider this project for these issues that have been raised before you. It's a real concern for the citizens that live in this area. And we heard also earlier by one of the outgoing commissioners about the quality of life, and that's something that you guys consider, and we appreciate that. Please consider that tonight, because I think that would change for us there on Pointers Road if this project was rezoned. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is David Martin. No kin, by the way. I'm a 34-year-old resident of Currituck County.
Could you give us your address, please?
It's 106 Walnut Drive, Sligo.
Okay.
Wife used to have the restaurant there, Currituck Country Kitchen, back in the days. But I rise in support of this. Because the way work has been for the last 6 years, there is no masonry work. And what this will do will put my men back to work. You know? One time I had 20 men on the payroll. Now all we're doing is part-time work. So you can talk about all the stuff you want to talk about, septic system and everything else. And that's what the engineers are here for, about the septic systems. But anyway, like I said, I've been in the business for 48 years. And I am also a disabled American veteran too, so thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Anyone else? Hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. Can I ask Mr.
You got
I'm sorry. He was down behind the podium. I couldn't see him. Sorry.
I'd like to speak, and also the owner would like to speak after I do.
Okay, please come forward and give us your name and address as well.
Okay. My name's Eddie Hyman with Hyman and Roby, and I'm representing the project. And I wanted to kind of give a summary of where we are, where we've been through this process, and it's set out in the UDO to do so. We make our application, we go through a TRC meeting, and most of probably all of the items that you've heard concerns discussed tonight were reviewed and looked at. DOT is a part of the TRC review. The health department comes in and they don't do evaluation, but they give comments. There was some cursory site evaluations done on the parcel before it was purchased, and they were suitable, the ones we found or the ones we saw. There are some areas on this parcel that have concerns of mine for soils, and there's a note on the plan that says the final lot layout will be contingent upon drainage and site evaluation and things of that nature. But during the process, the community meeting is set up, and we take input from the community. We try to be a good neighbor and see what's going on. The initial layout request that you saw was, like I say, much different than the one we have here. But this was what we had decided or what we prescribed. From the concerns from the Roses particularly, we withdrew, we pulled back our request from 84 acres to 46 acres. And also remember that we join about a 10-acre parcel of what we're trying is already zoned residential. And that but anyway, we have pulled back our zoning request to be 500 feet away from the Roses, not intended as a buffer, but just to buffer from the residential zone. We don't want that to be misconstrued as some kind of conservation area. We just want it to remain as ag area and an ag buffer. Now, that is what like I said, we pulled back from the rezoning request away from Miss Rose's property 500 feet, only the distance off of Elrod Road to get one lot depth, and that's all we want for our rezoning request. The right-of-way that she spoke about that goes into the property has been cut off by the minor subdivision. So there's no right-of-way that goes in by her property anymore. The access to this parcel is down Elrod. The residual parcel that Mr. Dunson owns is down Elrod Road. Again, we revised the plan to try to hear the community outcry. We've reduced the number of lots and the number of acres we're asking in our rezoning, and the rest of it will remain agriculture. The tech review staff approved it because they used the land use plan as a benchmark to go by for use, and they hear concerns as far and compare it to development. The planning board also approved it as it was, and we have made a reduction in that request on the north track. We are asking for one lot per every acre and a half, where the density in the land use plan is one lot per acre. On the south track, we reduced the density. When I say south track, the track south of Elrod Road, the density is one lot for every 2 acres of just the track in question. If you include the other tracks to the south of that, it would be one lot per 5 acres or so. Again, the request is here to kind of try to help spur some of our economy. It'll put a lot of people to work, like the one gentleman that spoke. He's a brick mason from here. And I think Gary's going to address the other impacts. We have positive impacts on the community that the residential development will have. This is low-density residential development. I saw you raise your eyebrows when I mentioned not a buffer. We're buffering the Rose property from the rezoning request by 500 feet. We're not trying to establish an undevelopable buffer there at 500 feet. Those buffers will be established at sketch plan and preliminary plat review. Any buffers that are established in those reviews.
So I guess what you're saying is that 500-foot buffer is a buffer tonight, but it could come back later and we're going to build houses on it.
Only under the agriculture pretense, what's allowed in agriculture, if that's available. Now, you get a lot of when it comes into you as a subdivision review, that's the point in time where you can really manipulate and create your buffers as needed.
But we can't manipulate and create that 500-foot buffer if you decide that it's not going to be a part of the subdivision.
Well, that part's not being reviewed for rezoning tonight, but when that part, if and when that part does come back as review, it'll be under your new ordinance. And the new ordinance would limit the ag zone, which is what it is, to, it depends on how it's developed, but it's a number crunch that really diminishes your density or encourages you to set aside a lot of conservation area.
Well, I'll be quite honest with you, Mr. Hyman. I'd rather y'all have gone ahead and showed tonight what you intend to do with it.
We don't know what we intend to do with it.
But you do intend to do something with it.
At this point, no. Actually, if you would see the first sketch we submitted for rezoning, it didn't include that area at all. All it included was road front lots off of Elrod. Planning staff wanted to see a layout of that area since it was being considered for the rezoning, and we did the layout, and now we pulled back away from it again.
Okay.
That is not, really would have no plans to do that right now, and like I said, we wished for it to remain agriculture.
I'm not trying to beat you up. You have a right to do what you want to with your property within the rules that the board has adopted. I understand
that. And if
it
comes ahead, like I say, if and when it comes ahead, it would be under the new UDO, which the planning staff, the county has a more intricate input in the design of those developments, and Ben can attest to that.
Okay. Let me ask one quick question. What would preclude this 500-foot piece from coming back just exactly what we're dealing with tonight for a rezoning request to take it from ag to residential? Anything? Is there anything that would preclude that from happening?
There's nothing that precludes them from requesting a rezoning change. That applies to every parcel in Currituck County.
That's what I thought. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. Thanks.
Now, I will note just that track, and the tract of land that's in question is on the screen. It looks like I don't know what it looks like. It's got the long piece of the arm that's coming off of it. They're putting lots on that tract that are abutting Elrod Road. You can see there. When that comes in for a subdivision, if the Board of Commissioners approves a preliminary plat for those lots abutting Elrod Road, they're going to have to show you that entire parent tract. So you're going to have a use permit, a plat that shows the lots on Elrod Road, and it shows the residual parcels or residual land that's comprises this 500-foot zoning buffer. Through that use permit proceeding, you may be able to add some conditions or provide some limitations on that residual piece of land through a use permit. But from a zoning perspective, I mean, they could still apply for rezoning, but once the use permit may be an opportunity to do that. But again, that's not something you can do tonight. And you may, to what extent you want to wait and do that as a preliminary plat, it's up to you as a board.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Is it possible that you did soil samples, like you said, 3 lots, I think?
We just had a cursory review. There was several people looking at this property for purchase, and a lot of them had come to me about it. Mr. Dunson ended up being the buyer at the end, but there's been sites have been looked at for septic evaluations, and they were suitable, the ones that we saw. The soil map in the county shows a large portion of this to the center as being suitable type soils. And then the only area I have a concern with is over to the west of the church lot, or that cul-de-sac that comes in off of Tulls Creek Road. But like I said, those evaluations have to be favorable before we can move forward with preliminary. So the soils, we're not going to design, nobody wants to plan or design anything that's not going to perk.
So it's feasible that your density is going to decrease.
Yes.
Because of what these people are saying is true.
If it comes to be truth, yes. The density will decrease.
Is it possible that your client, and you can come back or whatever, because I know where I'm leaning personally, is it possible that your client will consider this 500-foot buffer to be a conservation area, so down the road it's like, we don't want a gotcha? if I think this is what they're saying, they want some type of protection, that another board, another day could change this.
Mr. Dunson wants to speak, and I'll let him take over. And then if you have any technical questions, I'll be glad to ask him. The area that's up there on the north is already zoned residential. Part of it where we're talking about.
But that's not where that's not in that 500 foot, though, is it?
No, the area we backed off 500 feet with our rezoning request based on the input from the neighborhood.
I know, but you did it out of goodwill to you to promote it. I understand that. But my problem is once you've got it, then you can come back, and we'll call it 2 out of 3.
Well, I don't think we intend to do that.
I'd just like to address that.
How about giving us your name and address, Mr. Dunston?
I'm Gary Dunston, Harbinger Land and Timber.
Yes, sir.
That 500 feet, we took that out of the zoning request in result of all the opposition we had to it. All the neighbors don't want any changes in their neighborhood.
Understand.
They had the opportunity to buy this property. They had the opportunity to go to auction and purchase this property and get it. We pulled back and left that 500 feet as is. We didn't change anything. That's just like it is now. And Ms. Rose spoke to you herself and said she didn't have any problem with it being agriculture zone and anything that would go in agriculture zone. I would hate to limit beautiful high property next to a cemetery is a conservation easement. But it is zoned agriculture, and whatever the agriculture zone dictates later needs to be considered. One of the things I have a issue with is well, let me just say my little speech here. I'm a terrible public speaker, but I had a little speech here. But anyway, for the past 250 years, millions of Americans have fought and given their lives to maintain the American way, and that way is the land of the free. This property was offered for sale at a public auction, and anyone in this community and anyone in this courtroom could have bought that property, paid for it, and done whatever they wanted to. I bought and paid dearly for this property, and I've heard all the opposition led primarily by one neighbor who wants the property next to them to remain woodland and farmland. Any one of you would like to control what goes on next door to you without having to buy or pay taxes on that property. But I don't think that's what our American forefathers who gave their lives for our country envisioned. What we propose has some advantages to the community. I would think that it would provide revenues. My estimated permit fees are $50,000, impact fees $260,000, transfer taxes $150,000, and an increased tax base of $10 million. It would help community development. Better water pressure from our new water lines, better fire protection from our new fire hydrants, and nicer and newer housing for our population. And the biggest thing would be jobs. Our biggest industry in Currituck is housing, and this development would employ hundreds. With all the businesses right here in Currituck that employ hundreds who buy gas, snacks, dine in Currituck Marketplace, and these people include the material suppliers as well, suppliers, craftsmen, tradesmen. We get our materials from J.I. Heyman, Griggs Lumber, and ABC Supply, all located right here in Currituck. Mark Bikert and Moyock does our concrete. Foundations, Dave Martin and his crew, who you heard speak. Doug Sullivan's our framer. Jason Keeter's our trim carpenter. We get our flooring from H&W Plastics and Mill & Carpet. Electrical, WW Electric of Point Harbor. Fireplaces, Randy Pettit from Powell's Point. Painting, Mike Arbogast. The list goes on. After hearing the vocal oppositions of the people who want no changes to our neighborhood, and even though the county recommended approval as originally submitted, the TRC recommended approval and the planning board voted to approve it. We've attempted to appease the neighbors by dropping the request down from 84 acres to 47 acres and leaving the rest agriculture, which is no change. We reduced the lot count from 54 to 42 lots and left that agriculture zone of 500 by 1,800 feet to turn farmland, that's nice, high, beautiful land, into a conservation easement. It just doesn't fit what the land use plan proposes. Anyways, addressing the site evaluations. We had site evaluations prepared by a soil scientist, and those are preliminarily approved. Those will be addressed at the preliminary plat, and we have to provide those, each and every one of them, before those lots are considered for approval. Anyway, 15 years ago in this same room, the initiator of all this opposition appeared before the Currituck commissioners and requested a special use permit to operate a non-conforming commercial seafood business in an agriculture zone, even though there's no other commercial zone nor any water within a mile of that property. The county, in all its wisdom and fairness and property rights, granted them that approval. All I ask is the same consideration. Please approve the request before you. Let's put the people of Currituck back to work in private industry. It's the American way. One of the people asked that spoke to you tonight, would you want it in your yard? Well, I'm the property owner, and I say yes. My livelihood depends on it, and so does many of the people in Currituck. Thank you.
All right. Does anyone have any questions of Mr. Dunstan? Or?
Sure, I do. Mr. Dunstan, what's in that 500-foot buffer? I know it's adjacent to Mrs. Rose's property. Is there anything that's going to be planted in that section, or is some of that's already wooded already? Is it not?
Some of it is. We plan to continue using it as farmland, but I would hate to limit what my heirs and somebody down the road could do with it, because it's beautiful high property there.
Anyone else? Mr. Woody, I have one more question. It was alluded to that the new land use plan would affect that differently than how it currently is. How would that affect it differently?
Do you mean the new UDO?
Yeah, I meant UDO. The density would still be the same for farmland.
It wouldn't be density. The new UDO does a little more in the way of landscape buffering and compatibility standards. But it doesn't affect necessarily density per se, but it does have a little more impact on design. And even as Mr. Hyman said, the design process of how a subdivision is laid out is a lot more involved too. So there's a lot more opportunity in the new UDO to do some, should that ever develop, to provide some buffering or additional landscaping or things like that.
Yes, sir.
I have another question. I know Mr. Etheridge, I believe he left. That's his family property that he oversees, and I see him out there all the time. The typical lot sizes, I know like that was probably about 3/4 of an acre, if I'm not mistaken. About a half an acre. And he's right there by Elroy. What about and I heard multiple people speak about their property sizes, and I know. What about some of the property like where the Richards live, where Roland Rick was? What's his?
Could I say something about some of the property in the area too? I meant to say that. There's 7 lots directly across the street from the Roses property that vary in size from a 1/3 acre to 1 acre. 7 lots strung right across the road there. There's also an additional 20 lots just down the road at the corner of another neighborhood. I don't know if you can find it on this map. There's another road corner that goes to the west of that. That there's another 20 lots that range in size from ½ acre to acre. I don't recall the name of that road, but it's about, I think I measured it at 2,000 feet or 1,500 feet from the Roses property down Copeland Road. But there's 20 lots there that are ½ acre to acre, and there's 7 lots directly across the street from an acre that are from a ½ acre to an acre, or 1/3 of an acre to an acre. And the one on the corner there is 100 by 150, which is actually a 1/3 of an acre.
Everybody's had their speak. Does any commissioners have any other questions? All right, hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and ask the board for their motion.
I want to ask a silly question. I'm really torn. And me personally, I'd like some time to ponder it, because I don't want to make a decision to affect this gentleman or these people
and right now I'm torn. That's all I can say is me personally. I would feel comfortable, having it come back in the 1st of January. That I can only speak for myself.
Is that a motion or just your feelings?
Well, I'll make a motion that we continue this thing till the 1st of January. For me personally, and again, I'm only speaking for myself. This is a hard decision. I realize these people have property rights, and I'm a firm believer in property rights, but I also believe that there are concerns about the 500 feet, and I realize property rights trump everything else, but I'm looking at the map with all the lines, and I'm wondering, I'm just wondering how many lots will actually perk. So again, I'm thinking that the density is going to be a lot less than what they're proposing. Based on what I'm hearing, the soils are marginal at best. It says right here, most of the property is marginal. So I'll make a motion to continue at the first meeting in January, but that's my personal reasons.
We have a motion on the floor to continue. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a proper second. I'll open for discussion. I have one question of Mr. Woody. If this is continued, would they, if approved, still go under the old UDO since this was applied for under the old UDO? Or can the board designate that it continue under the current rules?
There's transition provisions that say if you submit a complete application for development request, you can logically continue that request. So I guess the question for the attorney would be, would we consider a conditional zoning application the first step in moving through the preliminary plat process?
I think what you have before you is just that, a conditional zoning application. You don't have a preliminary plat application before you.
Okay. Anyone else have any other questions?
Yeah, I've got one question, and I preface it, of course, that I'm new, but I've heard a lot of concerns from some of the neighbors about the ability for the lots to perk. And maybe I'm not aware of whether the cart's before the horse, but it seems to me a lot of angst would be resolved prior to making a determination on what can be done with the property, whether or not it can ultimately be utilized for the purposes for which they're requesting. And there seems to be maybe I can get some schooling here, clarification. It seems like the cart's kind of being pushed before the horse because we don't know what, how much, or how many of the lots will perk, which will have certainly a significant impact upon what ultimately we're going to approve. Now, I don't know if that's a question, that's an observation.
I guess I would submit to you that until a preliminary plat is submitted, there is no provision to require them to perk any of that property and submit it to the Board of Commissioners before they bring a preliminary plat forward. So it would require the preliminary plat coming forward at that time. Then is it a percentage they have to do, Mr. Woody, or is it every one of them?
They've got to get evaluations for all the lots.
For every one of them. So they can't do an evaluation until they submit a preliminary plat.
Okay, and that's why I was kind of using the analogy of the cart before the horse.
The system allows the cart to be before the horse.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any other comments? We have a motion that's properly seconded. Hearing no other comments, call the question. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. To be continued to the first meeting in January, which will be January the 7th, January the 7th. Item E, public hearing and action, PB 12-05, Currituck County. Request to amend the Unified Development Ordinance, Chapter 1, General Provisions, Chapter 2, Administration, Chapter 7, Environmental Protection, Chapter 9, Enforcement, and Chapter 10, Definitions and Measurement to update the Flood Damage Prevention Ordinance to remain compliant in the National Flood Insurance Program and the North Carolina Floodplain Management Program. Mr. Woody. Oh!
Yes.
Much better than Mr. Woody.
Agreed.
But I have a question before we start this. I thought we had done all our amendments at the last meeting.
We have, and this is just something that the state is requiring us to do. The state reviewed our ordinance, our UDO, and we've just recently gotten comments back from them. So there's nothing, I would say nothing substantive in this. It's just getting our kind of our blessing from the state of North Carolina to participate in the flood program. And Holly's going to tell you why that's important.
And Ms. White, it's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good to be with you guys tonight, and I'm going to be very brief. I've cut some stuff out already. The text amendment before you tonight is similar to other text amendments that you've seen for the UDO. As you just stated, it's specifically all about flood and changes that are necessary in order to meet the minimum mandatory requirement or the state's floodplain mapping program. The state has been actively engaged in our rewrite process for the past year, and they've been providing us feedback all along. By participating in the National Flood Insurance Program, that makes available federally backed flood insurance to property owners in Currituck County. We also participate in the Community Rating System, or CRS, which is its sister program, and through Currituck's county staff, keeping track of elevation certificates, making those available to the public, and a list of other activities. Property owners receive a 10% discount on their flood insurance, and that's already reflected in their bill when they receive it. Just a few quick facts on Currituck County and the flood insurance policies. From 1978 to the present, there are 5,426 active policies in the county, and that would be $1,501,380,100 in insured property. The paid losses from 1978 forward there have been 775 cases, and that would be at a value of $10,664,695.93. Very quickly, I would say that North Carolina's flood program is one of the most progressive in the nation. It's the first cooperating technical partner in the nation to undertake its own mapping, and that's a benefit to the flood property owners in the floodplain. They can better understand their risk, and it also helps the county to better mitigate future flooding losses. The proposed changes before you tonight cover several different chapters. The majority of those changes are in Chapter 7, and they're very minor wording changes as necessary to meet the code, the federal code, and the state's model flood ordinance. The main reason we've broken apart the state's model floodplain ordinance. Generally, that's one document as a whole. Most communities adopt that whole scale. We've broken it apart because we have a new format with our UDO that was intended to make it more user-friendly. The duties, the application requirements, and the development requirements were all broken into different pieces. That's all I have about the ordinance changes for tonight, but I also wanted to take the opportunity to mention that February 2013 we will be receiving new draft floodplain maps, and we will undergo a 6 to 9 month adoption process in conjunction with the state. And at that time, we will adopt new maps and update the new ordinance. So I guess we're anticipating the end of next year, we will have new flood maps and update our ordinance again, just to make you aware of that. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Anyone have any questions of Ms. White? I will make this comment. I sat in a flood insurance class about 2 weeks ago. And if I'm not mistaken, they said the majority of flood claims are not in flood zones.
Correct.
Not in designated flood zones.
Yeah, I had that. I cut that.
Yeah.
Yes, but that is correct.
And additionally, I think everybody needs to be aware that if a community does not participate in the community standards as what Currituck is doing, no one can buy flood insurance in your community, municipality, if you do not participate in the National Flood Program with the hooks that the federal government so graciously gives us.
Correct.
So we'll open this for a public hearing. I have no one signed up. Is there anyone that wishes to speak to this issue? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing and ask the board for a motion.
Move for approval.
A motion for approval.
Second that.
Second.
Motion.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Thank you, Ms. White. Administrative reports, Mr. Scanlon, it's award bid for reverse osmosis water treatment plant, Southern Outer Banks water system.
Our county engineer, Eric Weatherly, actually is going to present this.
Welcome, Mr. Weatherly.
Thank you. Tonight I'd like to bring forward the recommendation of award for our water plant expansion at Southern Outer Banks water system. First off, I'd like to give you a little update. In July of 2009, the county purchased and now owns and operates all of the private water systems on the Outer Banks. We acquired Monterey Shores, Corolla Light, Currituck Club, and Pine Island. All of these had poor water issues, water quality issues. The purchase was $5.6 million, and we financed that through a 10-year commercial loan. We were able to refinance our existing loan and keep our rates at the same price. We also are looking at $6.3 million in expansion. We financed that through a 5-year loan from our occupancy tax, and we're paying that back through a $50 increase on all the water bills, except Pine Island, and that has a different water rate. So I'd like to talk about improvements we've completed to date. We've interconnected all the private water systems now to SOBWS. We have repainted the Corolla Light water tank, and upgrades we're working on. We will expand our plant by 1 MGD to serve these new communities. We will build a new water tank and construct new wells. The water tank that you see in the drawing has already been completed. That was put online in October. The water plant will be expanded behind the existing facility. And you can see it'll be on the same site right adjacent to the existing water plant. The water plant we anticipate to be complete April of 2014. So tonight we want to bring the recommendation of award for bids. We bid the water plant expansion on November the 15th. The low bidder was George Raper and Son out of Elizabeth City. The bid amount was $3,648,932. And with your approval, we're ready to move forward with construction. Be glad to answer any questions.
You want to have questions of Mr. Weatherly?
I do. How long is it going to take to pay this money back?
10 years on the purchase and 5 years on the construction.
Anyone else? I have another question. Who's paying for this?
On the purchase, that was a refinance of an existing loan, so we didn't have to raise the rates. On the expansion, the new communities are paying for that.
Customers of the Southern Outer Banks water system are the only ones paying back on this debt.
And they're the only ones held liable for this debt.
That's correct. And anybody who lives on the mainland is not paying anything towards this system, nor are they assuming any liabilities for it. It will be just water customers of the Outer Banks water system are the ones that are paying it.
I sometimes think we don't do a very good job of clarifying when you're throwing these $3 million here and $3 million there, of making sure the people understand that it's the users are paying for this, not the general fund or the general taxpayers, and they hold no liability for this.
If the board recalls, when we purchased the systems, we built into that rate structure in advance, knowing that we had to do these capital improvements. We built into that rate structure the revenue necessary to do this, that $50 addition fee. So the customers have already been paying for a year, 2 years now. They've already been paying towards it. So their rates are not going up now. They went up when we bought the system, and we've generated the money to make these loan payments. So we're not proposing a rate increase or a change in rate at all on the Outer Banks. It was already built into that initial rate structure when we bought the systems.
And is this bid within what you anticipated?
Yes, it is.
Sir. Was it less than?
It's actually less than.
I think you should let us know when it's less than. That's a change.
It was a good bid. It's less than what we were engineering anticipating.
And it's a good contractor, so we got a good project.
So the engineer and the county manager are recommending approval of we accept this bid.
Yes, sir.
So I'll ask for a motion from the Board of Commissioners.
So moved.
We have a motion for approval.
Second that motion.
Second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. New business. We have, thank you, Mr. Weatherly. It's a long drive home. You might want to wait for Mr. McCree. Board appointments. Appointment of a commissioner to Albemarle Commission. And I would submit to the board, if you're not comfortable making these appointments tonight, that you want a little time to talk about it, because this is a commissioner will be serving on the Albemarle Commission, unless someone wants to volunteer. And you two new guys, y'all will be serving on some boards in addition to being a commissioner that you kind of need to look through them and see what ones interest you. So, but if someone would like to volunteer, we'll certainly appoint you tonight.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we postpone that until our January meeting so that we can have some discussion on that appointment.
I think that's a wise decision. I think we'll just do that. An appointment to the planning board.
That is my appointment, and I need to postpone that also to the January meeting.
Okay, and I have a reappointment of John Wright at large. He's eligible for a reappointment, and I would ask the board to approve his reappointment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Appointment to Board of Adjustments.
That was for the planning board.
What?
Somebody asked what board that was for.
Oh, the planning board. We have an appointment to the Board of Adjustment. I believe.
My appointment, and I will keep Mr. Christian Connor to appoint.
Okay, Mr. Idlet has an appointment, but also Mr. Bass is coming off, which would mean Mr. Tabor is moving up to his position, and I would need to appoint a alternate. But at this time, we'll.
I think that's Mr. Griggs'.
It's District 2's?
It's District 2.
I'm mistaken. I thought Ms. Keene said it was mine.
No, it's a District 2 appointment, but you are correct in the alternate moving up, and the new alternate slot would be appointed by Mr. Griggs.
Okay, Mr. Griggs, are you ready to make an appointment?
No, I'm not. I'd like some more time to.
We will vote on Mr. Idlet's reappointment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? And appointment to Tourism Board.
I'd like to appoint Mike Martine. He owns a business, the video business in Moyock, and make a great addition to the Tourism Advisory Board.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. And I think that leaves us for an appointment to the Board of Adjustment, an alternate, and
Albemarle
Commission. And
we will actually circulate. I mean, you'll need to look at all your commissioner appointments to boards, and we'll bring that back to you hopefully next meeting.
Next item is consent agenda. I have a motion for approval.
So move.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Commissioners report. Mr. Idlet, if you have anything to report. Mr. Petrie.
After my new orientation, I learned. No, I don't have anything to report.
Ms. Gilbert.
I'd just like to remind the community of our meeting on December 13th at the Moyock Middle School for the Moyock Small Area Plan.
Mr. Martin.
I would just like to wish everybody a happy holiday for the seasons, and remember those men and women who are going in harm's way this holiday season.
Mr.
Thank you.
McCord. Mr. Griggs.
Nothing at this time, thank you.
I have nothing as well.
Chairman, I'd also like to welcome our 2 new board members.
Yes, welcome aboard. Only thing I would like to say is on behalf of the board, welcome to you two and to everyone at home. Merry Christmas. Maybe I'm not supposed to say that, but I'll say it again. Merry Christmas. And hope that you think about those that are less fortunate. There's many of them around us. Mr. Scanlon, do you have anything to report?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
All right, I would ask that we recess the Currituck County Board of Commissioners and reconvene as the Tourism Development Authority.
So moved.
We have a motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, Mr. Scanlon.
Mr. Chairman, you have, I believe, 4 budget amendments that's in your package that deal with OSU tax, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have on any one of those particularly.
You want to give just a brief synopsis of them?
Okay, the first one is we placed out to bid the next phase of the historic Jarvisburg Colored School project, and we're requesting funds to go ahead and finish that phase up. You have a request in here for additional public safety signage to be put out in our tourism areas. There's been a request to go in and do some no wake signage and some community awareness signs. So you have a budget amendment for that. This time of the year, we get an annual audit for our unemployment compensation. That audit has been done. Tourism, as well as a couple of other departments, have to kick in some additional funds on our insurance premium. So you have a budget amendment there that reflects the tourism contribution towards the employees in that industry paying more for their workers' comp, or the unemployment compensation. And the last one is a budget amendment in support of the dinner that we had with the Board of Transportation. And I'll be happy to answer any specific questions you might have on any of those.
Anyone have any specific questions?
I do.
Yes, sir.
The signage you're talking about, does that take into consideration the signage for Corolla area and the beach areas?
This is
been talking about for a year.
Not exactly. This is signage that the county is responsible for certain signage in waterways specifically. That somehow over the years we became responsible for making sure that those no wake signs and water safety signs are installed. And it's in various different communities throughout the county, and this is addressing specifically that issue.
Who makes the determination about the no wake areas?
It's determined. Yeah, it was determined when the no wake zone was created by the WRC folks. They established the exact boundaries of that.
Talking about existing stuff.
Yes, but they passed the responsibility on signing it to the local government. So it's our responsibility to sign it. So this is to go back and review those areas. Some of it's replacement signs, some of it's signs that maybe were never put up. But it's to go back and do a comprehensive review of those areas that the county has responsible for signing to make sure that we, in fact, have those signs in place.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I'd ask for a motion.
So moved.
Have a motion for approval. Second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? I'd ask this time that we would adjourn as the Tourism Development Authority and reconvene as a Board of Commissioners so that we can adjourn for the evening.
Second.
A motion, a second, and I'm not taking discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? You can stay.